figure out a second
How
one.
about we start the game? So welcome everybody who's now joining us in the midst of the conversation.
Sorry. Oh, right, that was live. Awesome.
We are, I don't even know where to start. You may be noticing that the sound is slightly off if you're watching live. Hopefully I've been able to correct this in post for those of you watching on YouTube. Apologies. We're trying something entirely new. Air conditioning, intense air conditioning. So, first off, welcome. This is Legends of the Drowned Isles, a homebrew D&D 5th edition game. I am your host and GM. I'm Mark the Encaffeinated One. And I also happen to be, I work at a local community radio station, and we have a wonderful studio, which is for multiple purposes. And I decided, hey, we sweated a lot last summer. Maybe we can try it here at the studio. It's also something that we've been thinking about for the radio station in different ways, so I wanted to see how complicated it was. Turns out I have a lot of crap involved in setting this whole thing up, and there's still some bugs to be ironed out. So we'll get better hopefully as we go on. But this is a homebrew D&D game in a homemade world called Ometia. This is episode, I think, 35 of the video version of this, but we've been running for 3 years, I want to say, 4 years
in
almost.
October,
Late 2016, I think.
Is it?
almost.
So almost 3 years then. I thought it was 4 for some reason, but it may just seem like that 4 sometimes. So if you're not exactly sure what's going on, we apologize for that, but we do try to provide a recap at the beginning of each session, and I think at some point we'll do a sort of story so far type thing once we've wrapped up an arc. But going around the table, my players, let's start on this side. Yeah, so everybody's moving around. Do I even have your labels right? I have your labels right? Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, we had the same
How did
relative positions, yeah.
I guess
But we're on the opposite
But
side
you're
of
on
the
opposite
table,
sides of this room,
so
so
he would
it's
have had
normal.
to switch them anyway.
So for those of you whose heads are spinning, then no, these people haven't dramatically changed. They just moved around a little bit.
but
so
I
we'll
wanted
start
Pat
here.
to have pink hair.
We'll work on that. We should all have pink hair in one session. Probably
Just for
won't
fun.
last.
I won't at that point.
Yeah, you'll have something else.
I mean, I'm probably going to have no hair within like 2 weeks or so I can just get a pink wig.
Just paint your head pink I think at that point.
I'm Marie. I play Elzara, the Wood Elf Druid, who is kind of in a very emotional place right now.
I'm Jody. I'm going to be playing Clark, our half-orc fighting rogue, who is curious about his origins and may get a chance, perhaps in the future, to explore them.
Hey, I'm Nax, and I'll be playing Zacchus, half-elf wizard, who's probably missing a few bits and pieces right now, and barely alive.
I'm Pat, playing Kushima, the Kobold Ranger Bard Rogue.
A lot. All right. So it has been a rather busy week, so I did not get a chance to write up my own summary. So from memory and from the one that Pat conveniently wrote up as well, we're going to take the characters back into the shadow. So the shadow being some strange pocket dimension, maybe a hell from what you've seen so far, where time does not move in the way that you expect. There is no shift from day to night. And generally, there's not a lot happening, which is driving many of the residents quite mad. It has several different places in the shadow. Currently, you're in Festering, once referred to as the Festering Forest, but that moniker may have fallen away hundreds, thousands of years ago. Some people have spoken as if they've been here for hundreds of years. You've even met some people who died a few thousand years ago, and others who thought they had only died fairly recently, but had experienced hundreds of years. In the spot in Festering, you had found the inverted tower of Immerel who had built this over, again, hundreds of years subjectively. This strange twisted tower where he had carved into the wall everything from simple counters to apparently trying to keep notes at times. Different rooms have presented you with different pictures of Immerel's stay here, from an experimenter, from an arcanist, from possibly a torturer or manipulator, from someone who crafted things over centuries for purposes not quite yet known. When we last left off, you had been just outside a pod in which you had found someone called Bezetzi, who had spoken in your mind. After a short discussion of the potential working together, it was rather decided by Clark and Kujaima in particular that this was not a being to be trusted. In fact, you had some idea of what the being was. I think at that point, Zakis had already worked out that it was probably a kind of mind flayer or illithid called an Alhun, who had been known to seek power beyond what they had, legendarily. A fight broke out in which the pod was smashed open, cracked right around the area where it was melding from its original style of glass and probably star metal. It had been melded with an organic collection of vines and reeds and almost hard, fleshy bits, which had probably come from the water that was dripping down the hallway from an opening in the wall. Something from the Grey River? Grey Brook. There you go.
Although it's a river now, basically.
It's a bit of a river, yeah. That somehow flows across this realm. This realm, which seems to be in an enclosed area, because we've even seen more like a cave-like roof. Well, Bezetzi came free, managed to tie up most of the people in the room briefly with an explosion of tentacles that came out of the water, and then fled downward, deeper into the flooded sections of the tower. After determining that he wasn't either coming back immediately, but that they really did want to go further, so Dalitas, which is the name of the group collectively, decided to find a way to get rid of the water. Several creative explanations were come up with. The first thing just simply being to block up the crack in the wall which had been created through which the small seepage of water was coming. Once the water was no longer a building, I believe Elzera decided to burn the place down.
Yeah.
Using a very clever use of wall of fire.
Burn it all.
To burn out the water as it flowed down there. Now, all of you know that the water isn't exactly water. It's a liquid substance, yes, but carries with it a very severe parasite, is one way to put it. One that seems to start very quickly transforming people. However, as we've also noted before, time moves very strangely here. Following that, and following down to the floor and the floor below it, you discovered eventually Bezetzi itself, and a confrontation was had. Bezetzi was close, but not successful in actually destroying Zakis, who he seemed to regard as the most important of the group. The one he had had the conversation with, the one that he believed had something that he could share. And as he said at the time, he was very sorry about that, and then tried to disintegrate you.
Yeah.
Almost worked.
Well, the feeling is mutual.
Well, I think you did try at one point to do that to him. But after the battle was over, that bottom floor was cleared of almost all of the water from a similar wall of fire spell being used again. And those two final floors were revealed. The bottommost floor, in particular, had the actual remnants of a starstone, very similar to what you had discovered in Turaka, which caused the hum for which the creatures there had been transformed. The Vespari had been transformed into a humanoid race. Although here you found it very minimal in its power. The floor above that, you found the remnants of a teleportation circle, which Zakis recognized as the one connected to the library, but a very odd collection of things meant to power it. There you saw remnants of that same white bone which you had found, claimed to be the bones of Paluxia, but diminished, almost chalk-like, almost falling apart. Parts of that star metal there as well, forged to be part of this circle, but now much duller, their energy having been expended. With time, energy, and some of the raw resources, though, Zakis is confident that eventually he could get this to work. Hopefully.
And we have plenty of time.
There's also the
Not
question of what the
really.
other side is connected to still. As you know, it was not open all the time. It had to be deliberately opened. On the bottom floor, though, with the Starstone, was one more revelation. A small piece of metal, probably belonging to a larger construction, which Zacchus, again, looking at the arcane nature of it, felt that he understood sort of its purpose, to take a living soul and transform it into something else. Something like a vessel. A small bit of that soul remained in one part of the nearly destroyed workbench, essentially. And that soul spoke to Alzera, the thing that she had felt calling to her through her ring, a memory. The memory of the day that Riordan proposed. But not her memory, his. And there, you all felt a little more enlightened about the experiences you've had. Took a moment to reflect, and everybody leveled up.
Woo!
From here and
I
now,
need to lie down.
having this piece in hand, you know the last remnants of that sensation that you're being drawn to, the smaller part of it. Now, more than ever, you can feel that stronger pull of deeper into Festering, where you believe whatever remains of Riordan may live.
I'm holding on to this, and I am literally just, I crumble. And I'm on the floor crying. I'm just holding on to this.
None of you really noticed exactly what she was paying attention to. Like most of you, she poked a little bit through the wreckage, but pulled out a particular piece that seemed to affect her greatly.
Are you okay? I mean, if it's some kind of trap, I can dispel it.
I don't answer.
Is she crying?
Yeah.
Zacchus will sit down as well, because he's, like, almost dead.
Is there a way to sort of figure out from Alzera's demeanor what's sort of going on? Because all we've seen is like, oh, here's the thing. Oh crap, flop.
Right.
And then tears from our end.
I think the without having to roll an inside check, it's very easy to see that she's been directly affected by what she touched.
Right.
You do know that she had said several times that there was a pull from the ring, a pull to her,
So this
her
is
dead fiance.
a thing or part of the thing that she's been looking
She
for.
found what she had been
Yeah,
looking for,
okay.
and it's profoundly affected her.
Okay.
But she doesn't look hurt. She looks, well, how would you describe the emotion?
Confused, mix of happy and sad, because it being a shard means that she probably can't bring him back. But she's happy that she at least found him.
Okay.
I'm going to do a level 5 healing word on Zacchus.
Okay. I'm going to move that microphone just a little bit out of the way so you don't accidentally hit it.
Can Clark have a look around the room while this is happening?
Sure. What in particular is he looking for?
And just the character of the chamber itself. If there's any sort of markings or any sort of indicators throughout
Make
the
an
room.
investigation check.
Sure. Maybe we can glean some more information. 16.
16. Okay. As you hear the familiar drum beats that Kuzaima uses to cast his spells, or their spells, I guess, you look around the room. Now, first of all, it looks as though it was recently wet. There's still some dampness from whatever that substance or water was.
Right.
But as you look closer, first of all, there had been a thing that was built in this room, and you can see the pieces of parts are scattered all over the place. Almost as though they had first been exploded from within, as you find some of the pieces are broken and
Embedded in the walls and stuff.
a little bit, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. The room itself, you do see the remnants of carvings on the walls.
Okay.
Not images, but more runes, similar to what you'd seen before.
Right.
But a lot of them have been worn. And as you look a little closer, you also kind of make out minute little pinpricks in all the walls, as if 1,000 small creatures were all kind of sampling at the wall, trying to get its energy and understand it. given that this room was filled with the Greybrook, and you know that there are things in the Greybrook, it's very possible that they were essentially as one mind trying to scour this room.
Shipworms or something.
Kind of trying to understand it.
Okay.
But it also looks as though, while some of those pieces are embedded and broken, some of them were definitely taken out a bit more and examined more. Usually the ones that seem like they're a little bit more intact, like a hinge type mechanism. You think if you gather them all together, and maybe with a bit of help, you might be able to reconstruct the shape of the thing, but
Okay.
it's definitely been destroyed and is now utterly powerless.
One more question.
Sure.
What remains of the remains of Bezetzi?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Nothing at all. When his body, when he was hit by the fatal blow, his body went stiff and started to liquefy into that black form, and then that just turned to ash, which then vanished into nothing.
Okay.
So now that I'm feeling a little better, thanks for this life force.
No
Much
worries.
appreciated. I'll see Clark looking around, and I'll go look around with him.
Okay.
There's
Clark
writings on the walls.
Clark will point out the holes and the little bits of stuff.
Yeah. So you'll start from the idea that you kind of determined there was a device in here.
Yeah.
What Clark has discovered is that its end was not a natural end. It definitely met an explosive end. And as he points out some of the carvings and stuff, you can immediately see that a lot of the carvings that were on the wall were actually protective in nature, probably meant to contain some of the energy in order to be less detected, first of all, which is why the hum did not seem, or the effect did not seem to happen as much at the upper levels. But a lot of those have also been scarred and marred by this. You can make an Arcana check, though, because he's already pointed out where those were, to try to make a little bit more determination.
It's cooked. It's an 8 plus 14. So 22.
22. And as you're looking around and kind of tracing them, you see very familiar carvings and a style that's very familiar to you, Immerel style. It changes a couple of times, almost as though he's not exactly himself in the same way each time that he's doing this. And you can see also that there's a little difference of age, as though he was carving all of these and making it and empowering them one by one. But then also they would just be stopped, and a little bit later they would be picked up again. And that delay, which is noticeable based on the kind of rock that's here, that delay is pretty sizable.
Okay.
It's hard to judge what the natural pattern of decay is here for rocks or where, but it had to have been decades, maybe. If you're looking at this at home, you would think it was done by different generations.
Okay.
It also seems to get a lot more ragged towards the sort of conclusion of those. Maybe out of speed, maybe out of lack of faculty, or maybe out of desperation.
And they're basically just to, like, as some kind of defense mechanism against whatever.
It's all about kind of controlling the amount of raw magical
Okay.
radiation coming off of this stone, and trying to channel it. The fact that there is a divot on the top of the stone, and as large as the stone is, and it's the part you can see is like a 10 by 10 mound with a 5-foot dome embedded in the top. That's just the peak of this thing. So it is massive. Now, how much energy is still left in it, you're not really sure. It does sparkle slightly from it, and you do have a sense of that. You also get the sense that maybe some of the energy was already drained away.
Yeah.
That the Greybrook was able to siphon some of this, which is probably what they were actually doing here.
Okay. It's like the Greybrook was taking energy from it. Until now, anyway.
You have a feeling that if that water is opened up again, they'll continue to drain whatever power is in this.
Yep.
And you have a feeling, too, that if you are going to try to repair that circle, you're going to need active stone that still has some power in it.
Okay.
As
So-
Sarah continues to kind of console herself across the room.
She's going to put that piece of soul in one of her pockets.
Okay. It kind of resembles, it's physical.
Yeah.
It kind of resembles a slightly light yellow-green crystal, but it's not regular like a crystal. It's like a small shard, just about the size of your thumbnail.
I'm just like, no, this isn't the character that has a locket. That would be way too convenient. But no, she's going to put it in one of her shirt pockets.
Okay.
And she's going to straighten up and walk out of the room.
Okay.
Clark will follow. Behind with some space.
Well, you have the large thing. If you were too close, then it'd be like...
Yeah.
I
soaking
guess we'll
back.
call out and probably be ignored.
Call
Are you
it what?
okay?
Oh, is Zacchaeus
Zacchaeus
hurt?
is ignored.
Okay. You're probably spending quite a lot of time,
Yeah.
and in your mind, the wheels are starting to spin about, how could all this happen? One of the weird memories that comes back to you, strangely enough, was the builder. I'm trying to remember his first name.
Which one?
In the library, in the
Gerbo.
basement.
Gerbo.
Thank you. I'm so glad you guys remember that. Also, it's been a while. But you remember Gerbo the Builder?
Yeah.
And the amazing things that he was planning to build and the amazing creations he had in mind. But
That he
the problem
only
that he
needed a
had,
power source.
he needed a power source to make sure it worked properly.
Hey.
Now, a fragment of the Starstone you found in Taraka is at the library right now. So, as you continue to look around the room, what's Kujaima want to do?
He's going to cast Detect Magic and take a look around.
Okay.
And Zacchaeus will also collect pieces of whatever used to be the device. See if he can put it back together.
Okay. Clark has already pulled some of the pieces together.
He wouldn't keep anything.
You wouldn't
He'd
really know which ones are which anyway.
He'd
so
throw them
it's-
somewhere.
Yeah. You cast Detect Magic, and what happens almost immediately is almost a sense of overwhelmingness just from the sheer raw power that's still emanating from the stone in front of you. The runes around the room, the carvings also still emanate, but it's very faint power. And there's this weird sort of wash back and forth between the two, almost as though there's a little bit of our power released from the stone itself that goes into the carvings, which themselves sort of transform and use that energy almost against it as it washes back at the thing itself. Kind of a weird rippling effect that's in constant motion. There's no other magical items or devices in this room, as far as you can see, anyway.
What kind of magic?
It sort of defies explanation. You're used to seeing magic in color. The color has some indication of this sort of magic. On the walls, it would be abjuration, a little bit of evocation, but the energy that's reflected back and the energy that's coming out of the stone are both multicolored and shifting, almost like seeing a constantly changing rainbow, or a light which refracts through a prism and you see that rainbow effect. But as the light itself changes in nature going in, the reflected light also changes. It's a little bit of a feedback loop as well, but the stone isn't responding nearly as much.
There's a lot of power in that.
Yes.
The runes are using it to focus back on itself. I'm getting out of here before it does something nasty to me.
I don't think it would.
I go up a couple of floors and I'll take a nap.
Okay. How far up are you going? Because there's the floor above you, which is the
2
gate
floors.
room. There's the so that's the open.
Avoid the floodwaters in case something goes bong.
Like where we
Okay.
rested last.
So one below where
The prism.
Bone Twitch is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. As you're going up, how far up are you going?
That's where I would be heading.
Okay. And Clark?
About the same. If Elzara looks like she's slowing down and gonna take a break, Clark will take a break too.
Kind of get the impression that you're just sort of half aware, but want to get to a
Yeah.
place which is away a little bit.
Yeah.
And even going up just those couple of floors, you start to notice the diminishing feel of the hum. Almost as though... Make an Arcana check, actually.
Oh God.
You can do it.
Probably not.
Are you trained in Arcana?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, but that's a natural 18, so that is a dirty 20.
Okay. You've become aware of the hum in a couple of different ways. The weirdness right now is that it feels, as soon as you leave that first floor, it's almost completely gone and almost like a distant echo. That's not the sensation on the way down, though. You felt it kind of constantly pulsing, almost as though there was something in the room which was disrupting its additional pattern, or its stable pattern. And then you kind of reach into your pocket and you just sort of touch the stone and realize that whatever residual energy or whatever soul energy is inside this thing, it was actually causing it to go a little out of flux. And now that that's been removed from the area, it seems to have settled into a steady pattern again. Clark, are you trained in Arcana?
No.
Okay.
Clark is trained in nothing.
As you go up, you do
Since the
though
rogue.
notice that sort of in the background sound, and it actually sounds remarkably quiet.
It's good. Quiet is good.
Given that, not too long ago there was the rushing of water, there was the fight, of course, that went on. There was all of that, and now suddenly you hear almost nothing. No sound of anything.
Well, Clark will hear something, but
Even that seems to be muted somehow, almost as though everything was heightened before, and now everything is kind of fading
his
away.
weapon doesn't speak to him.
It seems to be remarkably quiet right now, too.
Well, if given a few moments, it looks like Elzara is going to camp out for a little while. Clark will listen closely to his weapon, do some focusing.
As you sit down and kind of pull out the weapon, are you going through the ritual of cleaning and
I think it's a good. We had a fight. It's a good time to get everything nice and sharp and
The
clean and
familiar
polished.
routine is nice to kind of settle in after all of that. As you're doing that, Kujaima is coming in as well, and you see Clark pulling out this strange, still dark-bladed, still somewhat shadowy weapon, and starts to focus on it. What is the goal of your focus?
He's just going to listen, open himself up to suggestions. Something that it might not be the hum would be good.
Okay.
It definitely is the hum.
Make a... what do you want to call this? I want to call this
Sure.
a perception check.
Okay. Natural one. Clark
Natural
will. Clark will keep going, doing what he's doing.
As you focus on it, the world does seem to drift away. Maybe it's the familiar motion that you're doing to clean the weapon and curve it, but it's almost as though you don't hear anything else. Everything is the weapon in front of you. Kujaima, you see, first of all, Elzara kind of over in the corner, starting to kind of bundle up and get ready for what looks like a rest. You see Clark start working away at the weapon, and he just has this incredibly intense look on his eyes. And you can see that the pupils of his eyes are gone, replaced with shadow themselves, which leaks out slightly towards the edges of his eyes.
I can't do that.
You're okay?
You don't hear him.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to respond. He's still moving. He's still paying attention to what he's doing, but he doesn't seem to be aware of anything else.
Zara's holding on to the doll.
Pretty normal for most of our
Okay.
group. So.
It snuggles up against you. It's not often it moves on its own while you're holding it. And there's certainly no threat of heights here. Sorry, what was that with Kujaima?
I sit down.
Okay.
I'll just keep watch.
How long is Zakis remaining downstairs in the basement with it by himself?
Not too long.
As you
He's just
kind
going
of
to pick up.
realize.
How many shattered pieces are there? Like
Hundreds.
Okay.
And they
He's just
vary
gonna-
in size from the size of a finger to all the way up to the size of your shoulder.
He's going to pick up a few and carry them upstairs shortly after. And just to make sure I'm understanding like the layout of the room properly, it's kind of like the map pieces we had last time. And you said there was like 10 foot by 10 foot ish block
In the
It's
middle.
In the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's like a 5 foot crater inside it where the stone is?
Essentially, yeah, a
Okay.
divot. Yeah.
Okay. And
What's your strength?
it is. I'm pretty sure it's a +0. Yeah, it's 10.
These are really dense pieces, so you'll be able to carry a few larger pieces or a handful of smaller pieces, but that's about it.
Okay. I'll grab like one medium-ish size piece and
Okay.
a few small ones.
There's the remains of runes carved into it, part of the construction of the device.
Okay. Because I don't want to stay down here too long by myself. Because like the Glumpkins are still around. What if they come back? I don't want to be like without my allies. It's Zakis being kind of a scaredy cat and
Okay.
going upstairs in a brisk pace.
And for you, having been focused on the energy, the device, and based on what Kujaima had said, you also immediately notice leaving that first floor, it is like stepping from a warm room, a nice common room with a fire burning, which is very familiar and comfortable, out into a blistering snowstorm. You feel empty and cold. You also remember that the hum itself affected you the most deeply. And you feel torn a little bit. You know your friends are upstairs. You know that security and safety lies there. But just for a little while, you'd rather be down there. And you think a little bit about what it would have been like to live with that sensation for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Does that change his decision to go upstairs at all?
Not really. There's some hesitation, definitely. But I mean, I'll go upstairs. If it's way too uncomfortable, I can always go back downstairs later, and we're going to be down there at some point again anyway.
Another floor up, and the sensation's almost entirely gone.
Okay.
Now, like a wonderful memory that you almost can't even believe was real. And now you feel normal-ish.
Less powerful.
You definitely feel like yourself more, and you kind of feel an emptiness, but it's like a cloak that you didn't really need, but was comfortable.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Soon I'll feel it again.
You join your friends in that common room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did anybody else feel that leaving that room?
Clark doesn't seem to
Clark
even
doesn't
notice it coming in.
respond.
He's steadily focusing on this weapon.
Also, I'm
Each time
sitting
he's
on
stroking on the blade,
floor.
the shadow seems to roll around his hand and arm naturally, almost like he's carving smoke.
Okay. Have I seen that happen before? Probably. Or is it to that extent? Or?
There have been some strange effects this weapon has had on Clark. This one is not one you particularly have noticed, but his eyes did turn solid black before. He does do a routine like this with his weapons, not too often, or not too rarely, I should say.
I'll just acknowledge the fact that it's happening, and I'll go near Kozima, preferably placing Kozima between myself and Clark, just in case he attacks me again like he did one time.
That one time?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least two, wow.
And
It sounds like everybody's intent on having a long rest. Am I reading this right?
Sounds like it is.
so, did you feel anything going up the stairs? Or stop feeling something going up the stairs?
Did I?
You weren't there on Taraka.
Nope.
So there's a similar piece of star metal. I could feel it much more greatly, but this stone, 2 floors below, has the same energy. Anyway, when you leave its area of effect, it's unpleasant. I wish I was down there again. Did you feel anything similar?
For you, it was... You probably chalked it up to the heightened experience of the moment. More that, hey, we're going to this combat, there's this fight going on. Thinking back on it, there may have been something, but it wasn't something very remarkable to you.
Not really. But
Okay.
probably a good reason not to go there.
Well, we need to go there. Our escape lies in that room. I'm almost positive.
Or our escape lies with Patera letting us out. That was the original plan.
Yes, well, the plan has changed. We can't quite escape here through the forest. Anyway, we can discuss it tomorrow. Whatever tomorrow means in this place.
Okay. Are you all just going to go for a rest, or are you going to bother with anything else? It doesn't sound like any of you are really focused on the idea of a structured rest at all. Just kind of sitting back and letting it happen more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on things for a few hours.
Okay.
If Clark comes out of his funk, he'll do a watch when he realizes what's going on.
Yeah. St. Burrell's era.
So I guess we'll try to study some of the device pieces before, like for a few minutes before going to bed.
Okay.
It's like, is there anything that's like super obvious? Or?
Other than the fact that you can see how some of it was pieced together, there are jagged edges. There are definitely pieces missing, or at least they were blown apart in different ways. As you study it, it becomes clear that whatever was made with this, it did complete the making, but in the making destroyed the mechanism. Almost as though the amount of energy necessary probably washed out of the entire room You start to think that divot that's in the top, that wasn't just from removing materials. That was the sheer force of whatever happened. And whoever was in that room when it happened was probably destroyed. The sheer amount of power that would need to twist this metal and turn it and tear it like this is immense.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, who was in that room? Or was it, like, set to operate by itself? Anyway.
Until you try to recreate the machine, and that could take centuries. Just judging by how complicated it is, you look closer at the metal and you notice that it's not just metal that's been banged into place; it's metal that has been woven together, which means it had to have been repeatedly heated. It had to have been done millimeter by millimeter in order to be able to do it, or something extraordinarily strong would have to do it. Most likely, it was done with magic. You all sleep. Some of your dreams, coming unbidden, remind you of greener lands, where all the colors were still vibrant and real. You find your minds retreating away from any reality you've been experiencing for a while, hanging on to those colors, hanging on to the wash of natural sounds, whether it be the natural sounds of a busy city all around you, or soldiers getting ready for war, whether it be the natural sounds of librarians scurrying around and making sure the books are in the right place, small sounds, the smell of books, warm, happy things.
Like, wake up and it was all a dream. Yeah.
Memories of older times, when you learned how to play the drum, Kujaima. You do not remember specifically the times after, where you were bound in iron, or the times before, when you were free and traveling. For you, Ozara, the dreams are probably the most vivid and the most specific. They aren't just of places you've seen 1,000 times. They are of that day. Everything was pre-planned. You know his brother had something to do with it. You know your brother had something to do with it. Because conveniently the two of you were completely left alone when there was so much more to be done. Nobody was asking you to go do this or do that. And it's a pleasant memory. In that moment, years have been erased. But as the dream fades, there's a new wrinkle, a new line you've never heard him say before. It has been so good to see you, Zara. Now, come find me before it's too late. And you wake up instantly at that moment from the trance you've been in.
I get up. And where are we in the rest?
This is the full rest is completed.
For us, I am throwing my stuff into my bag and...
For Clark,
Yes.
the weapon you find has been stowed expertly
Okay. When he wakes up.
when he wakes up.
Oh.
As if at some point he had completed whatever he was doing. And the weapon is now perfectly stowed properly. Your gear is already all set to go. And you notice that it's not only all set to go, it's been resorted. Everything has been made clean again. All of your weapons are clean. And everything is in order. Very much like when you were a soldier.
Clark will look around as if to ask, and then shake it off.
Zacchus, you awake. In front of you, you've got the few pieces you were working on just as you fell asleep. Kind of put into a certain order.
Yeah, that was the thing. I'll pick them back up.
You are awake. You're rested. What is your plan?
choose spells.
Fair enough.
Clark will look around. How's everyone looking?
Is this the room with the teleportation circle, by the way?
No,
Okay.
it's above that layer.
Okay.
This is the room you had actually stayed in before. Just above where the water had been flowing, but just below where the hag was.
Okay.
Everybody looks remarkably rested.
Okay.
There's probably a bit of concern crossing across Elzara's face, and you can see her hurriedly making sure everything is ready to go.
Right.
But there is this for the first time in the days, weeks, months you've been here, years at this point. Time is really strange.
It's been 3 centuries. All of you guys are dead. Sorry.
You already met a human who was, if the relative date was correct, was over 3,000 years old. So.
Fair.
But no, it was the most contenting rest you had since you came here.
Nothing trying to kill us, and we're in a safe location. Yes. Safe-ish.
Indeed.
Look, Clark will gather his things, stand up, and wait patiently. It
Okay.
appears Elzara has a heading. He'll wait for her to take it.
All
So I
right.
guess we'll also gather his things. So are we heading back downstairs?
Don't know.
I'd like to see if I can piece this back together, although it may take a
You
long
need
time.
to get to the heart. Now.
Where is it?
I'm going with her.
Downstairs? Was downstairs referring to the heart? The star seed was at the heart.
What is my ring indicating?
Oh, definitely not down that direction.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely
It's the
not.
stronger feeling you'd felt further
Yeah.
into Festering.
Yeah. We need to get to the heart.
Radix at this point has been pretty quiet. But you can see as soon as you kind of mention back on the original trip, she is ecstatic about leaving this stone hole, which would be one of the ways she would describe it.
Agreed.
How far away is it? I'll turn to Radix, because she might know.
Well, I don't know exactly where it is. What we have to guide us is, well, Elzara's feelings, really. But
Oh dear.
the landscape is not complicated from this point, other than, of course, the thick mass of Festering. It gets thicker the deeper we go in. It still seems to respect me, though, so I can help.
That's good. We need all the help we can get. Would there be a way to get back in? Well, does Zachus know if there would be a way to get back into this tower after?
You found the way in before,
Yeah.
so it shouldn't be any more difficult than that. Basically, the soul stones necessary to power the glyphs,
Okay.
and then some magical expenditure, and/or magical expenditure, because you can also use those.
Okay.
We're located in a big deadly bush, so it's unlikely new people will show up.
Yes, I suppose.
There is one question about how bad Festering will be over the top of the tower, however, because with the Whistler no longer being there,
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster.
it will be probably a lot more dangerous. It'll also be harder to see, so you'll have to figure out some way of finding a way to draw a bearing, essentially.
I remember everything.
That's true, you do, but the problem being is the landscape will have
Yeah.
changed by the time you make it back. You'll know, well, actually, in here you don't know where Absolute North is, but you do know where the Ember Skull is.
Yeah.
It seems to be the only natural, or rather unnatural landmark. So, you gather your things,
Mm-hmm.
you start to head upward. Is Elzara leading?
Elzara's. She doesn't care if anybody else is following her. She is going up the stairs.
Radix is pretty much at your elbow, just as keen, but also wanting to let you lead.
Yeah.
You go up one floor. Did you all sleep well, dearies? You hear from
I
inside
ignore.
the prison. Good travels. She calls after you as you pass by.
Yes, sir.
Do the rest of you engage at all?
Is there something that's kind of like linked to the hum in the basement that I could use to it would guide us back to the tower after we're done with the heart?
As you were going down, you did notice the presence of it, but it was very muted,
Okay.
and you were several floors down before you even noticed it. As it is now, it's even more muted than before.
Okay.
So from a distance, probably not.
Crap. What if I held on to one of the device pieces?
I mean, you have one.
Yeah.
You took a couple of pieces.
Okay. I'll just carry the small one with me though, because
So you're leaving the rest in that room?
yeah.
Okay. Bone Twitch does call to each of you as you pass. You probably don't necessarily pay much attention to her, but she seems pleased with what's happened so far and laughs pleasantly in this weird sort of way as you head up the stairs. You can actually hear it for a couple of floors as she's quite hysterical by the end. But then finally the sound fades.
What's she laughing about?
And you make your way back up.
Or
Who knows?
the prison she was behind, was that powered by the star, by any chance?
You didn't stop to look, so...
Okay. Well, if the star's been there the entire time, and so is she, then clearly she's not going anywhere.
It's one way of doing the logic. No one seems to be one way or the other agreeing or disagreeing. Several floors later, and an indeterminate amount of time, you feel tired, but that's because you've been climbing a lot of stairs. You realize it's a lot easier going down than it is back up. But time passes. You all gain one level of exhaustion. But as you do, you find yourselves with the familiar carvings on the walls. The ones that weren't symbols so much as simple straight lines, a counting of something. Up to this point, you didn't even notice necessarily you were getting tired. It was just an endless round after round after round, probably illuminated by your drift globe if you even wanted to bother.
Probably. Just in case we missed something in our panic on the way down.
And as before, you see all the same layers and all that shifting, strange appearance in them, as though carved by different people, and yet commonalities among them. You're at the top.
We should rest again before we head out. Whatever it is in here that's tiring me
You mean
I
the
don't-
stairs?
more than any stairs I've climbed.
If you want, I can cast my circle. You can sit on it and it'll follow me. You won't have to walk up the stairs.
None of you have been affected.
I'm tired.
I'm tired as well.
I'm tired enough to
Are
know
there
that I
two
will
of
be
you?
less. I'm tired enough to know that I will be less than prepared going out into that wilderness that wishes to kill us.
As is the case perhaps with all stairs around every universe that I've ever been in, you swear there were twice as many going up as there were going down.
Were there?
We should not be this tired.
You tried to count them, and the number kept changing. As though this floor had 25 stairs to go up, but the one that was just as long seemed to have 40 steps, and the one before it had 15. Almost as though the process of counting them was changing them.
So do I detect any
Emerald's
magic at
an
work?
asshole.
Are you going to use detect magic? There's definitely something strange, and it's probably a side effect of the tower itself. You can make an Arcana check.
Oh, yeah. 18 plus 14, 32.
Given that there's a sort of stability in the pattern of the energy down in the very bottom, it's entirely possible that the rest of the tower is now shifting with the reduction of that energy, and that literally reality is shifting around you. Although you have seen the same floors, there are a number of spaces which just don't have floors at all, but the stairs are really, really long. If you had to guess, you would say the tower is actually longer going up.
Okay.
Almost as though that starstone is receding further and further into the ground.
But it's not really.
And taking the tower with it.
Oh. Am I certain of this?
I mean, you'd have to examine the effect closer, but judging from the numbers you're counting and from the effect, and then making that leap from the Arcana knowledge, you're fairly certain there's something like that going on.
Yeah. It's like the tower's being distorted by the power of the stone. It's almost as if it's elongating and the stone's going deeper and deeper into the ground.
We should get out of here.
You start to think back on how this tower was constructed. Literally, it was a boring down through stone to get to that point. That may have been what he experienced the first time, is that the stone was moving away from him. And he had to accelerate or speed faster and faster to try to get there.
When he was reaching downwards towards the stone? Okay.
Mhm.
I'll relay this theory to my companions.
We should get out of here then.
Yes, but do I feel like it's possible to actually reach the top if we hurry?
Oh yeah, you see the stone, the area where he actually marked off the ticks as well, and that seems to be the same place it was last time.
Okay.
If you go back down again, though, it might be longer than when you came back up
Okay.
again.
We need to hurry. Run!
Now, I think on the interior of the cap, you had found essentially the exit rune, making it a very simple process to allow it to exit. As it does, though, the experience is kind of strange from the inside, as the room you're in turns and elongates upward. As you recall, the tower rose slightly to reveal the door when you solved the puzzle of it. It seems to stretch and strain, however, and you can hear the stone kind of put under pressure and cracking slightly on the walls, and you can hear faintly the sounds of the snapping vines that must have overtaken the dome. But it does twist in about 5 minutes, rising very slowly and turning. And as sort of, in a way, you almost notice that there's an interior and exterior door that line up to reduce the actual opening to the outside.
Okay.
Covered in vines.
Well,
With those sharp spikes on them.
Well,
back in the Festering. And do I know if there's a way to, like, leave this unlocked, or are we going to have to unlock it the same way we had to the beginning?
It seems to reset itself.
Okay.
So it requires the same or a similar effect to get in again.
well, everybody back up. I turn into fire.
Okay. There's almost a realization maybe they didn't quite back up far enough, as the room seems a lot smaller when there's a large walking fire elemental in the middle of it. A floating fire elemental, I should say.
And I start just...
Okay. It does recede from you, but at the same time it is resisting you.
Yeah.
So we'll have you make an attack roll, and I'll have it make an attack roll. We'll see how we do.
Stats of fire elemental.
And I'll make sure I remember detailed, well, not measurements, but like orientations of where this spot is, where we're going, and like relative to the ember skull in the sky.
Okay.
So we can like find our way back as closely as easily as possible.
As long as you can maintain that connection to the Ember Skull, you should be able to walk directly here.
Okay.
But that's not the path you're taking, and not the path you traveled on.
No.
So,
24 to hit.
24? Okay, you push on through. You end up with 7 piercing damage as it's trying to grasp onto you, but that quickly fades away. A tunnel is being made in this. It looks as though it aggressively grew back. You almost get the impression that because it had been pushed back for so long, it's making up for lost time as the jungle is simply run up around you. There is a tunnel that's being left in her wake, which is closing quickly.
Best we stay in that space.
Yeah, I'll stay behind Elzara, but not too close to like singe my eyebrows or anything.
Which direction is Elzara going when she leaves?
Radix is our guide, so I'm our guide for that, but I'm going to point in the direction that the heart is.
Okay.
And
What I'll have the 3 of you, Radix does not seem to be affected by the vines in the same way, but I'll have you make either an athletics or an acrobatics roll to either work your way through or to quickly jump over them as they start to snake out behind you.
Acrobatics. I'll pull up my robe and get a 11.
net 20.
24.
You don't need to make it because they aren't grasping onto you.
Oh, fair.
24.
24.
11.
Waste of a nat 20.
So each of you are rushing through to try to keep up because they are closing pretty quickly. You find that there's eventually basically a circle around you where they're not coming much closer. Radix is keeping as close to you as she can, although not so close as to get singed, but also kind of leading a little bit. And you push on for about 15 minutes, just pushing until it starts to lighten up. from her directions, it's almost as though you left that at least that clearing, and then the next clearing around it. So now you're seeing larger trees and stones. You take 10 points of piercing damage, however, as they do kind of lash out at your ankles, and you have a little bit of time. Then you trip a little bit, and another one grasps you around the back of the neck and scrapes across the back. There's a little bit of a sting as the thing scrapes across you. The rest of you are fine. Which did you do, athletics or acrobatics?
Athletics.
Athletics and
Acrobatics.
So you're for kind of from sheer force of will pushing through and making sure to just time it properly. We just stomp on the vine as it comes closer to you, whereas you kind of hop underneath and around and over these vines. But eventually you find yourself out to where the viney part that you'd noticed on the outer rim, in for several miles, but the outer rim of Festering seems to have died down a bit. And you emerge into a woods where the ground is somewhat rolling in between these trees that are massive, some of them maybe 10 feet wide. They disappear up into the sky. You can see this thick foliage that's intergrown overhead. No sound of animals, no sound of creatures. The wood creaking slightly in the wind that you cannot see, do not feel, is heard echoing around you. No leaves cover the ground, but a thick moss that's brown and somewhat sap-like as you walk across it, almost with a little bit of pull on the boots as you step after step.
Question. As we're walking without touching the moss, but looking at a sample in a vial, does this resemble blood moss as we're walking across it?
It has similar texture, yes.
Okay. I only have so many sample jars, so I'm just going to keep the one I got.
Okay. You make your way in that direction. Radix, almost reverently, speaks as she's looking around. I've heard this called the Quiet Wood. I've never been here, but it feels like I've always been here. I know this place somehow.
Quiet and less painful vines. I like this place already. Scratching in it.
Still, this is still the heart of Festering. And all of these trees, it saddens me to say, they are still part of it too. We should be able to make good speed.
Excellent.
And she leads you through, moving at an excellent speed. Are you staying as the fire element?
I would stay as...
In here, you're going to run the risk of lighting these trees on fire. They're fairly
Yeah.
dense.
Then I won't. I'll turn back into myself. But I will, if need be, I'll end up casting my own
Rush.
fire sword.
Stones.
Casting
For
immersions?
rocks.
Casting dispersions?
Give me a second.
Casting a line? Getting a fish? A tree fish?
Never mind, I don't have that spell prepared. Never mind. I will, however, once I'm out of that form, cast Long Strider on you.
Thank you.
You can see where you and Radix would have pointed out that, it's dangerous to be as this here. Actually, Nax, if you want to just quickly close that door so we're not interrupted by accident. You kind of look over to where she pointed, where the flame had started to lick away at part of the branch, or part of the bark. And you can see the bark was kind of a bit blackened. Even at the distance it was, almost as though it was retreating a little bit, solidifying. But as you watch, it does seem to grow back a bit. And that tree that was there, again, no sense of wind, but almost as though it had caught a wind, creaks menacingly. And so you're thinking, probably not to make an enemy of all of these trees.
Probably a good idea.
They are trying to kill us, so that's good.
So yeah, I'll continue basically keeping guiding where the direction and relying on her to get us in that direction safely.
Okay.
Basically.
Each of you make a perception check as you're traveling along.
Sorry.
Disadvantage because level of exhaustion.
Oh man.
Natural one.
Well, then 20
Yeah, I
would have been
forgot.
nice.
Oh, double eights.
We should have actually had those on the
Yeah.
rolls earlier.
Yeah, I
today.
thought about that.
Well, I
too.
failed anyway. It's 14.
17.
No, 14 plus 2, so 16.
14.
I had a 14 and a 20. Which one?
I'm trying to make this thing line up for me here. Shoot. There they go. Okay. All right. Never mind. We'll do it that way. You travel for a time. Again, this weird sense of timelessness. Only Zacchus is really able to put any sort of label on the time. And even then, you're having difficulty because you can understand the relative time, but every time you try to think of what the time of day is, it slips away from you. It's an hour, and then a second hour, the same sort of forest echoing around you, and then a third hour. You start to wonder just how deep this place is. And in that third hour, so on your perception checks, who got a higher than 15?
16.
17.
No. 0. I got a 1. Sorry.
And you had a
17.
17? So, weirdly enough, I guess perhaps because you're trained in nature, I believe, Zacchus, even though you know,
I forget.
Read it in a book.
don't leave, doesn't ever leaves the library, but he's trained in nature.
He's got +6 in nature, but he's not like trained in it.
Oh, he's not trained in nature? Okay. To me,
It's
I thought
survival.
I thought we had established it. Oh, okay.
Medicine and survival.
Just
I'm trained
pure
in.
perception at that
Yeah.
particular point. Going from the sound of just these trees creaking, and then that getting stronger and stronger as you're moving along, as the trees seem to also get more dense as you travel further inward. You probably, because you're a bit on edge, and kind of Zacchus is in the complete opposite of what would be his natural landscape, but then the hours are kind of droning on. You're
And trying to memorize like the exact path back to the
right,
tower.
right, and it's like, okay, we have to go between the trees and then around the trees and to the left of the. Oh my God, it's all trees for hours upon hours upon hours, and then you probably partially because you're focusing on the destination as much as anything else, but also the weird dissimilarity that this woods has to anything you've known naturally. The canopy's way up ahead, and normally a place like this would be filled with life. Everything from the smallest worm and bug and butterfly up to bears and birds of all kinds would be here, and you'd see flowers from time to time. Both of you are kind of shocked when out of the corners of your eyes you see motion about maybe a half a mile up ahead. It's only there for a second and then gone, but it
I'm
was
not
definitely
gonna arrow.
something. Okay. What's your reaction, Zacchus?
Did you see that? What was that? Did I notice what it was?
You didn't get a glimpse of it, only motion was the thing that was there. But it was definitely something that was not a tree, and something that seemed to hide from you.
Well, it looks like it's hiding from us. Maybe it's not hostile. Whatever it is. Radix, is that another dryad?
I didn't see anything, but
It was in that direction. And I'll point, like, where I thought I saw it.
I have had a sense of familiarity since stepping here, and I don't think it's entirely from me. I think this place remembers me too,
In a good way or a bad way?
in a familiar way.
So whatever it was might not attack us outright. But if it is a dryad, please put in the good word for us.
if they'll listen to me. We share common history, I suppose. Do you push
After-
on still at the same speed?
Slower, I guess.
Yeah, I'll start going at a more cautious speed.
Okay. Do you want to be stealthy, or do you want to just move at a normal speed? Because at this point, you specifically had been moving faster, trying to push through, and
Yeah.
because of Radix being with you, she could easily keep you moving at full speed or faster without having to worry about tripping over things.
Yeah. I'll start slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, same.
To try to stay a little bit more stealthy.
Okay.
If that's okay with the rest of the group.
Is that the idea? Does everybody want to be more
Well,
stealthy?
Sarah
If you're gonna
sets the
move
pace,
stealthily,
so...
Yeah.
we'll have a stealth check then.
Remember, it's disadvantage.
Yep.
Well, I can't get any lower than 2.
You can.
Having rolled a
Stealth
-2 in a
is-
game last week, yep, you can.
So 3
5.
total.
5. What was your total?
3.
left?
Yeah.
3. Okay.
Trip over.
19.
19. Ooh.
22.
Wow. Okay. And
2 very bad, 2 very good.
Radius got a 17, so just kind of putting into the happier side of things. So perhaps because you did notice something, your heads are on a swivel, looking for more motion. This seems to be much more careful about keeping itself hidden. In doing so, you find yourself tripping on the occasional tree root that your swear wasn't as high as that. You thought you had stepped up necessarily high over it, but it causes you to start and stumble a little bit. Whereas Kuzaima melts into and seems to almost be part of the forest. And from tree to tree, always keeping that careful line of sight broken by trees around you, Clark manages to make his way through. Travel for another hour. And at first, the two that had seen something before, you're the first two to notice it. But the rest quickly become aware of a change. The trees are same. They are still as thick and large as they were. Very old growth forest. But the moss below you seems to have a sprinkling of color. We hear birds chirping. Normal, everyday, average, small birds. There are smaller trees and plants here as well. Saplings, occasional flowers, beautiful ones. It's a large yellow flower in particular, which you remember all too well. That flower that was one of your favorites is growing here. Not the only flower, but noticeable especially to you. And the sounds of a woodpecker banging on a tree not too far away start to bring the whole place to life. And within 20 more minutes of walking, it is as though you were in thick forests, no different from the ones you traveled in before, all over Vautour and other places.
Do you hear
Seems
that?
alive.
It's like things are normal.
Do I see any birds or just hear them?
After hearing them, you spot them way up in the canopy, actually flitting from tree to tree. Make a perception check.
All of us?
Nope, just Kujaima, because he's actually looking for birds.
11.
11? Every once in a while there's a fluttering of birds overhead. It seems to keep pace with you, strangely enough. But it may also be that they're just as curious about these interlopers as you are about them.
I'm not trusting what I'm
A
seeing.
dirt one.
Okay, make an attack roll.
Why?
It's the first meal we've had in a long time.
25.
25. You hit. Roll damage.
6.
6? Okay. As you see Kuzaima pull out the long, slender pipe and a little dart is shot, there is a squeak of surprise from the bird way up in the canopy. Was that a disadvantage? Because it's
Oh, no, it's only skill
the dart
checks.
range, no, but the dart range is pretty short. Unless this is as long as an arrow.
Don't you have sharpshooter?
Yeah.
Would you?
I actually do.
Would
I
you?
don't have
Okay.
disadvantage at long range.
Yeah.
Okay. No
And
problem.
ignore cover. Unless it's full.
You shot right through the leaves, the abundant, and now you can actually see fresh leaves where the rest were kind of brown and gold. As the dart spits through the upper canopy, a little squeak of surprise from the bird, and crashing through the canopy, and then open in the open air, making almost no sound for a second or two, except a little bit of fluttering of the wind against its wings as a robin falls out of the sky with a dart pierced in it. It appears to be dead.
I go check
There's a
if it's
fluttering
real.
of birds overhead that seem to shift from tree to tree, most of them away.
I go pick it up. Is it real?
It's solid. It's cooling quickly. It's got a bit of blood pooling out of it from where the dart pierced its heart.
That's
Sniff, sniff.
going to piss
Lick.
off whoever lives here.
Make a nature check.
17.
17. It's a real bird as you've ever tasted or smelled. It seems to be solid.
I
Is
try
he-
a drumstick.
So you're going to break off one of the wings? Or one
No,
of the legs? Okay.
I have a dagger. I'll cut it off.
Okay. As you all watch
No, there
Uzaiba,
doesn't.
start to butcher this
Zach is
small
his
bird.
name.
I'm assuming you've stopped at this moment.
Clark is interested.
Okay.
I think
as
it's
you
real.
Cut into the leg, find that little spot in between the joints where the cartilage is thinnest, and shove your knife in, cut it apart. It pulls apart. It bleeds because there's still some residual blood in it, but it seems to be raw flesh. Are you going to bother to pull the feathers, or just eat it with the feathers and everything?
Yep. Feathers and everything.
Okay. As you,
It's not whatnot.
it's still fresh and warm, like a good hunted bird. It tastes remarkable, and you kind of realize that you haven't eaten anything, nothing that has any real taste or substance, in a long time. And a warmth kind of spreads into you, the warmth of a good meal.
Seems real. Seems edible. Still don't trust it.
I'm glad you ate it, not me.
Well, you can't just waste the rest.
I
won't have
keep
it, but-
moving.
No, I'm snacking on it as I go.
Clark will follow Elzera.
I'll follow Elzara as well.
Radix looks concerned, but is more like, did that just really happen more than anything else?
Do you think
Like-
we're in a new zone of some sort?
Probably.
We haven't seen animals before here ever.
No.
Perhaps we're far enough away from the Grey Brook.
Yes, they
Even and even in the other spots before we got to the Grey Brook, we never saw any animals.
do.
or
Maybe
any
we're getting
signs
closer
that
to the
animals
heart.
had ever lived. That could be it.
What is your ring or your device? Or what do your feelings say? Are we getting closer to the heart?
Use your feelings.
It doesn't really change much in intensity the closer you get. It's just that now there's no other directions that it's pointing. It's no longer a divided sensation. Even the small amount that you had felt that connected back to the halfling, to Bernard, that seems to be diminished as well. Almost faded. You can still pick it out if you pay attention, though.
I start looking around this area.
Okay. What sort of looking around are you doing?
I don't know. I'm following my feelings, damn it.
Okay.
I don't know. She's trying to find something. She doesn't know what she's looking for either.
Okay, so you're just going to start scouring the area?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see Elzara looking around, and well, we obviously aren't being stealthy anymore if we're shooting stuff out of the sky. So I'll just
I
call
was
it out.
completely quiet when I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it actually is a very, very quiet act. The bird made more noise than he did, though,
Yeah.
or than they did.
So that probably alerted people, so I might as well, or alerted beings, so I'll just not scream out, but call out, "Hello? Is there anybody here?"
Okay. Well, we'll have you make, let's say, an investigation check as you're kind of looking around. What's Clark doing in the meantime?
He's going to arm himself and get ready for an encounter of some sort.
What's
Can
he
I
arming
roll
himself?
above a 10?
The glaive.
The glaive.
Makes sense.
That is an 8.
I'm squeezing some blood into a vial.
Okay. It doesn't get a lot left. They're not
Nope.
full of that much blood, but it's enough to...
I just want to see if the blood changes over time or if it stays.
Hey, Kazima, can I maybe use that later? Just maybe.
I held the bird out.
Is there any blood left in the bird?
I mean, if you squeeze
Actually, no,
it
it wouldn't
the right
work,
way,
never mind.
You can probably
Yeah,
make
it wouldn't
blood out of
work.
everything.
Has to be from
It
anyone.
would not. Yeah, it would not count for summoning a demon.
Just in case we get into a pinch again.
You're gonna use all of that? There might be something I can use there. Okay, I got a drop. That's good. So you roll an 8.
Yeah.
Okay. You're distracted because as you're kind of looking around and you're kind of moving aside, now it's become a lot more dense of an undergrowth, and vines and small plants are growing up. You kind of get a little bit distracted as you see a butterfly land on a branch nearby, and as you kind of swing your hands through the area, it kind of floats off, and you're like, oh, how beautiful.
Oh, how pretty.
It's like
Are you going to start a butterfly collection too?
No.
I'm going to pin them right as they're alive. And you call out. Okay. Your voice seems to echo on the trees. And it takes you all a moment to realize that's a really long echo until the thing you realize is that that's no longer his voice. Zacchus calls out, "Hello, is there anyone there?" It's kind of like, "Hello, is there anyone there? Hello, is anyone there?" And then it changes and shifts in timbre. "Hello, is anyone there? Hello, is anyone there?"
Cool.
As though the entire forest itself is echoing this with its own shaking of leaves and twisting of branch and fluttering of wing, and everything else is trying to reproduce and carry on these sounds further. They fade from your sound or from your hearing within a few seconds, but at the same time you kind of hear the distant echoes of the same sort of sounds being heard again. The sounds of the trees around you suddenly and in relative unison twisting slightly does alarm you as you hear the sound of all of the trees kind of twisting a little bit again to an invisible wind that you do not feel, swaying slightly, and there's a little bit of a sound of rumbling underneath, almost as though the roots themselves are digging or shifting underfoot. How long?
Is that a yes?
What do you do now?
Actually, is it speaking primordial by any chance?
Nothing is making any intelligible
Okay.
sense that you notice.
I'll look at the ground. You said the moss was a different color.
Full green,
Okay.
multiple kinds of moss and undergrowth now.
Okay.
Small ladybug flies up and lands on your boot as you look down, and flies off again.
Don't eat those. They taste terrible.
I'll take your word for it.
You hear the sound of the undergrowth being pushed aside. Somewhere up ahead, 40 or 50 feet away, it seems like at this point. Sounds as though it's kind of shifting and being shoved.
Is it something
Who is
kind of-
trained on nature?
No, I'm not.
So if you're trained on nature, you can make a roll.
14.
14. Same. Okay. Both of
That
you.
14 on the die would have been nice.
Both of you have been out in nature enough to realize that, and have been out in the summertime. And in the summertime, one of the things you will hear, if you are careful, and you yourself are quiet, is the sound of creatures moving through the forest. And that's what this sounds like. Something deliberately is moving. And it sounds as though it's moving in your direction, but not directly straight at you. Almost as though it's weaving a bit.
What's that noise?
Something
noise?
coming at us.
Should we move? Can you recognize it?
Probably good idea to move quietly.
I'll just move quietly and
Where to?
behind a tree.
Okay. You can make a hide roll if you want. That'll be your stealth check at disadvantage.
That's a 5.
Okay. He's decided to stand behind a tree. He happened to be looking, right at the tree, so he sees nothing. So he's definitely behind the tree. But for the two of you, you notice he just look over and he's kind of standing beside a tree. The tree itself in front of you is kind of shifting slightly as well.
Well, that's creepy. Is it shifting aggressively?
Noticeably, but not making any motion in a particular direction. Like it's swaying in a big invisible wind.
Okay.
What can I do?
You all can hear it again, this time maybe no more than 20 feet away. The underbrush is thick enough, though, that it's almost impossible to see, although you can make a perception check if you want to.
Does it sound anything like the trolls we encountered in these woods one time?
If it were a troll, you would see it.
Okay.
The troll's towered almost 12 feet tall, but the undergrowth is only a couple of feet, and you can kind of see it moving a little bit, and you can hear it.
I'm going to sneak up a tree.
It's not a troll and it's not a centaur.
Make an athletics or acrobatics check to climb up the tree. There's not a lot of branches at this level, but I think you have small
13.
claws. Yeah, you can manage to climb up the tree. Its bark is thick and easily
My
climbed.
sneak or stealth roll was 18.
Okay.
I am going to cast 2 action spells on myself.
Okay.
Freedom of movement first, and then protection from poison.
Okay. So you're taking time to
Yeah.
focus on yourself.
I'm taking 12 seconds going, ah,
Okay. What about Clark?
22 to perceive the things.
Okay. You notice that Elzera beside you has taken time to start casting spells. And,
This one's hiding behind a tree.
I don't know if freedom of movement has a visible effect. I don't think it really does, other than the fact that maybe your skin glistens slightly. It's a little bit oilier. It's nothing to grab onto you. The other one, the protection from poison, there's probably a flash of green, slightly. So it's just casting these spells to move more effectively. You look over, and it takes you a second, but then you do spot it as a line of yellow and white is moving through the base of these back and forth in a long winding path. And you realize there's a snake
Serpentine.
coming in your direction. But it is
Like-
weirdly, even though yellow and white, blending in fairly well with the foliage.
Given the distance traveled and the shapes made, is it possible to determine the size of the thing?
Based on that roll as well, enormous. Because it's leaving a trail behind it, still moving.
Okay.
You can kind of make it out a little bit. And then kind of judging by the loops that's making back and forth, probably 20 to 30 feet long. Somewhere between those two.
gross.
Clark will say, there is a serpent approaching the size of a tree.
Oh, that's not good. Is it hostile?
Clark raises a glaive like he's like that's his answer.
I will move
My knowledge
away
of-
from the snake and behind Clark.
My knowledge of general snakes and being able to turn into a snake, I believe. I'm gonna cast freedom of movement on Clark.
Okay. That was not concentration. The protection from poison is, though, I think.
No.
No? Okay.
Long Strider's good for an hour. Have we gone through an hour of travel by this point?
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay. Long Strider is on you again then.
Okay.
Oh, never
So
mind.
as you're casting that spell, you hear from about 15 feet away, it slowed its movement down. Kind of maybe in response to the call, maybe it knows it was sighted. It also, while naturally stealthy, didn't seem like it was trying to hide.
Right.
If it wouldn't have approached from an open area, it would have approached around a tree somewhere.
From a tree.
Or from a tree, indeed. As it seems to slow and then come to a stop some distance away.
All right.
And then you hear a voice, and I will see what I can do with this, because it is the sound of the snake speaking in common. What brings you to our forest? Are you conquerors, murderers, or kings?
None of the above.
Evidence to the contrary? The bird that was killed? What business do you have here? My lady does not take kindly to visitors.
The lady?
I'm searching for someone.
You will find no one here.
I have reason to believe the contrary.
And now you hear the sound of it, and based on where the voice is, and Clark can even be staring in that direction, it's now starting to circle around you, no longer coming straight at you, but almost looking like it's trying to, from your tactical mind, get an idea of everybody that's there and where they are and how they move. And so it's starting to slowly circle around you, about 20 feet away at this point, roughly. Again, you're not seeing it directly so much as the trees moving, or the undergrowth moving.
Clark will bark, eyes up.
Actually, from your perspective, you can make the perception check with advantage, which will cancel out your disadvantage at the moment.
I had rolled it, and I got a 1 and a 2.
Oh dear.
So either way,
So you're where
Well,
it
add
is,
an
but
8 or
effectively
9.
it's invisible to you right now. As its natural camouflage and the way it moves kind of keeps it from being seen.
We do apologize for the bird. I just believe our friend thought the bird to be an illusion and tried to test that theory. Notice how
There
we...
is a theory that all things are illusion here. Perhaps you are nothing more than illusions to test my patience.
Well, we're not intentionally trying to test your patience.
I ask again, who are you? And why have you come to my lady's forest?
I am Elzera Moonshadow Emakir.
I'm Zacchus and Lana Porter from Vator.
It continues to kind of circle around. Now it's basically behind where you were, moving at a fairly fast clip. And you know kind of where it is. The rest of you are still kind of having difficulty. And the voice seems to almost emanate. It has this weird sort of breathy quality.
That is half of you. Who are the rest?
Come on, you guys.
Clark looks at the kobold and waits.
Do you see me? I have an 18 stealth.
He looks at where the kobold was and waits.
No, you do see him.
What's your passive perception?
18.
Oh, okay. You have a decent idea where he is.
Yeah, he's over there somewhere.
No. You're not going to deliberately go, hey, you, in the tree, and get rid of his stealth by pointing it out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I move like opposite the snake to keep the tree mostly between us,
Okay.
but I'll say, you may call me Ironbound.
And the rest?
I'm Clark. I'm here to change the shadow,
For the better, I assure you.
as prophesized.
And kind of looking around, you can see that she's now got drawn some of the little dart like thorns that she grows on herself. Radix is looking around warily.
I am Radix. But I think you might know that already. Some of you are familiar. Interesting.
Which ones?
The little one. Radix. I have seen her like before. I have eaten her like before.
Could you not eat Radix? That would be much appreciated.
We shall see. My lady has not commanded me to eat you today. But there's still time to change her mind.
And the head kind of moves up visibly now. And you realize that it's turned all the way around to it's not far from you. Again, maintaining about 20 feet distance.
But you... Your name... Say it again.
Elzera Moonshadow Emakir.
Interesting. Why are you here, Amakir?
I'm searching for someone.
And who are you searching for?
As the head kind of moves and is drinking you in, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of trying to get a full picture of you. More or less ignoring the rest, but the eye does not have a motion to it, so that there's always one eye that is facing out towards the majority, but the head is kind of drinking in, the tongue lolling out of its mouth. Its head is about 5 feet wide.
Whoa.
At this point, too. As I
Big
mentioned,
ass
it's a very, very big snake. And it's got pale yellow and pale white scales and a mottled pattern down its back. And when it rises up and it's raising its head, it's about 4.5 feet up off the ground.
I'm searching for part of someone's soul.
Ah. I thought you said you were searching for someone.
They are a person.
That is not what I have been told. The souls here are free because the lady wishes it. That one has been taken will not go well. But this soul is not free. That you seek, is it?
And there's a little bit of snideness in that.
Me, the player, to my knowledge, there was a situation where one of the hags, the one that we don't have the name of, she did say that she was torturing Riordan's soul, correct?
I think she said something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or that his soul was being tortured. I don't know if she specifically said she was doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his hobby, maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah. So,
that may have been 20 sessions ago, so I may not remember. Exactly.
it was about like a year ago, who knows? Over a year ago now. But yeah. It was before that. Would be in this book.
I would know you better, Amakir.
Riordan's soul is trapped, possibly in danger, imprisoned.
May I taste you?
And at that, its mouth kind of comes open, and you see the fangs descend.
I let it happen.
Okay.
It
Clark-
moves forward.
Clark's going to approach.
Okay.
He won't be aggressive, but he'll be ready to move in.
It seems warily, and it kind of moves to kind of keep Elzara between you and the rest.
Right.
Hold out your arm.
I'm getting ready to dart it in the eye if necessary.
Is that going to poison or kill her?
I will not kill her yet.
Is it going to harm her in any way?
It will hurt.
But no permanent harm?
That depends on all of you.
I put my left arm specifically out.
Okay. And this gigantic snake's head comes level with you. First, level with your face, and looks. It kind of backs up a couple of feet so it can kind of look you in the eyes. And at this point, you're just seeing this massive snake's head, and its tongue lashes out near your face, and you kind of get the impression that it's tasting at you, at your very essence, and the tongue lightly hits one of your eyebrows, just kind of catching a little bit of sweat off the top of your forehead, and turns its head and twists kind of quizzically, and then in an instant it snaps its head forward, snaps onto your arm. You take 5 points of piercing damage as the fangs sink in,
Cool.
and then retreat
really.
almost as quickly. The wound with the spike-like holes now in your arm stings and burns a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then it rears back, and its tongue now is moving over its enormous teeth, and you can see your blood dripping from its fangs as it slowly kind of wraps its tongue around and squeezes every little drop.
Strange. But indeed, you are another one. We did not expect this.
Another what?
Another Amakir. A true one this time. Interesting.
Who was the false one?
And it kind of backs gracefully up a little bit, kind of looks over in your direction.
There was one who was not himself. He was eaten.
Was this... I'll give the snake the description of Immerel. Elf, tall, a bit arrogant.
Much like yourself, then.
Well, what do you mean arrogant?
I laugh a little bit.
I'm also not claiming to be an Amakir.
No. You do not have the weight of history. I must consult with my lady.
Who is she? We'd love to meet her.
I will bring you to her.
And it just starts to turn its neck and starts to lead you through the forest.
I spend a level 1 spell slot on Primeval Awareness.
Okay.
Last a minute, I can sense that the following are within 1 mile, but not the location or number. Aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead. Yeah, it's only 1 mile, so it's pretty close to us.
Okay. Does it give direction or only that you have or numbers? What's
Just if they're there.
if they're there?
Doesn't give location or number.
Okay. Within a mile. You definitely feel dragons. You definitely feel Fae. You also realize that Radix is standing right beside you.
Yep. It's not the most useful power, but
You definitely feel fiends.
Wah, wah.
And there's something which does not make sense, but the closest you would call it would be an aberration.
so it's leading us away, or it was leading.
It's leading you more or less in the same direction you were going, but slightly off to the side. So it's not directly in line with where you're sensing this going. It's more like it's over that way somewhere. It's over in a direction, but roughly in the same hemisphere, if you will.
But are we moving, or was it heading off by
It's
itself?
heading off, assuming that you're going to follow, but it's not. It will look back from time to time to see if you're following. It doesn't seem to be concerned one way or the other.
I will follow.
Okay. I'll mention I detect dragons and fiends here. Also, possibly something that felt like aberrations, but not quite the same.
We're in hell.
Yeah.
Dragon. Right.
Yep. I also sensed, I look over at Radix, Faye.
She just sort of shrugs.
But I did not detect undead or elementals or celestials. So,
I'll
it'd
ask
be nice
this
if it would let me detect beasts, but
Excuse me, what should we call you? Do you have a name?
I do not.
Okay. So Mr. Snake, Mrs. Snake?
Snick.
Snake.
You will call me for dinner if you keep this up.
I'm just trying to be respectful.
I don't
There's
think
a weird noise that for a second you're not sure what it is, and then it's a snake laughing.
I'm pretty sure I couldn't eat all of you.
You get the impression it's probably told that joke a number of times.
Yeah, probably.
And most of the time it was right. But it leads you on at a fairly brisk pace. For something this large, it's surprising just how quickly it can move. It seems unhindered by the landscape, the knotty tree branches and the trees that are there, the ever-growing and increasingly thick undergrowth. And as you move along, another 20 minutes or so, where you had kind of seen on the edge a few creatures, and the birds overhead had flown away after the robin was attacked. Now it is as though they are coming out to see the parade. You see a deer in full form, and then another, a larger one, probably the doe. You see badgers kind of rubbing through the dirt nearby and having to get fairly close because they can't see very well, and kind of standing half tucked behind a tree to see what's going on. One larger one and a couple of smaller ones around their feet.
Don't
okay.
shoot anything,
It's okay, we
please.
don't need no badgers.
Overhead, the cry of a falcon, as it seems to almost herald your arrival and announce it. Birds increasingly flying now, some a little bit more comfortable, maybe because you're being accompanied by the snake, or maybe because they're not used to people or something, coming and flying and almost buzzing nearby within 20 feet of you at this point, kind of looking and in pairs and in triplets, kind of warbling and traveling on by, doing their dance of amazing flight that they do. You start to see larger stones that have erupted out of the earth, or were taken out of the earth, made to erupt. Make a history check.
Only Elzera?
Only Elzera.
8.
Something familiar about this, but you're not quite certain what it is.
Something I just realized that I should have noticed earlier. When the bird died, it did not disappear. We may be in a place that is immune to whatever causes that.
So we may be
On
in
the
a
other hand-
normal place.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you die here, you're dead.
You can see as the snake moves forward, you can see lying on a rock, relaxing, a deep black panther. Almost, you realize, acting almost like a sentinel or perhaps a guard. You can see other smaller animals kind of dotting the landscape now. It's almost as though the place is entirely the opposite of what you've come to be known. More standing stones. The trees themselves now start to take on more regular patterns, whereas before they'd seem like a scattering of trees in different directions, no pattern, nothing to them. Now they seem like they're grown in specific ways. And you even look overhead and see that branches now much lower than where you'd seen before. Newer branches, only 15 feet up, where before the sky was 80 feet, 100 feet up. Now you see these smaller branches, carefully curated. You see them, in fact, growing into and have been grown into an arch overhead, and another one. And now you can see and make out a distinct pathway where beautiful small flowers are poking up against the edge of the walkway. Larger vines still growing along the sides, putting out small berries. You think that's a raspberry bush that's in full bloom, and you can even smell the raspberries fresh that they're there. At a certain point, not long after you've entered the archway, most of the animals seem to disappear, as though the end of the parade was done for them. Now, though, you do get the sense that you're being watched, and each of you can make a perception check once more.
19 would have been nice.
That is an 18.
20.
13.
I keep rolling above 15, but under 5 on the other one.
So I heard a 20. Was that the highest? What's the next highest?
That would be 18.
18?
I had an 11.
13.
13? Okay. Clark, probably still with the glaive out, is looking around, and the sudden silence kind of draws a bit of an alarm to you as to why are they not there. And you start looking at the trees. Now you can see the trees are heavily laden with vines. They're growing up in a symbiotic relationship around them. There are those large shelves now that are growing on the sides of the trees as well. A healthy sort of mushroom that's growing on there. You're looking at the handiwork and starting to recognize it. It's getting a little eerily familiar, in fact, as each of you spot just beyond the trees, and they kind of hide away and almost meld into the vines in a very much the same way that Radix does. Numerous dryads on either side. Some of them don't seem to realize that you're coming, and we're attending to some of the plants along the way, and then suddenly freeze and look a little frightened and skitter away, disappearing into the trees and into the growth around. Higher up in the trees, though, you see what look like ropes and nets where people are suspended. People are suspended. You can't make out much detail of them. They're very well camouflaged, but they are definitely watching you. And the thing you notice most of all, Clark, is they are armed. There are, is it bowmen? 2, 3 more. That one's carrying a spear. They're loaded for bear.
Clark will point as they're walking.
Well, hopefully this meeting with the lady goes well.
Mind your manners, folks.
Says the guy with the glaive, taking it.
He's got it tucked under an arm. He's not aggressively.
I mean, it's not exactly tuckable, but it's
well, it's a big stick.
Yeah.
And so he's tucked it under one arm, and he's walking with the blade end down.
Okay.
And he could bring it to bear, but he's not.
What way is the blade extended? Is it that the L shape or in the straight out, or does he have
Sort
it
of
flat
the
to
sortie type.
Okay. Okay. More like a spear, or
Yeah, it's like a sword on a stick.
It
so.
kind of has a double-edged blade and can be either tucked up against that like a glaive, out as an actual sickle, or straight out like a spear.
Yeah.
The straight out is usually where you have the extended
Yeah.
range. You're walking along now. The snake is fully visible ahead of you as the undergrowth is kind of drawn down to a minimal, and you can see underneath you there are stones that have been carefully placed. Stones which have carved writing on them. Who here can read Druidic?
Only the druid.
I wanted to make sure because sometimes you guys pick languages, not everyone.
I don't think it's available as an option.
You can, if you take linguist, choose any
yeah.
language.
Here's a question: Are they avoidable as we walk, or do they
the
become the
entire
road?
path has been carved with
There's
these.
nothing I can do about that then.
They are slightly overgrown with small plants, but seem to be well tended, and the carves themselves seem to be. You almost get the impression that they're either cleaned or somehow solidified or glazed over.
How much writing is on the stones? Like a lot, or just a few symbols here and there?
Each one of them seems to have some sort of glyphs on it. It's easy to miss at first, but you've also seen a fair amount of Druidic writing now, and you're starting to recognize it, whereas Alzera is probably looking pretty intensely at these and starting to recognize these. Most of it is how do I want to put this? It is telling a story. And it begins literally with, there was nothing. And then came nature. And there was peace and harmony and life. But then came the outsiders, who wished to change nature, to tame it, to conquer it, to feed off of it. We rose to fight them. We are the true people. And along with that, while that was simple language, you can imagine that some of it was flowery, some of it was literally flowery, as embellished as it was. But the rest of it seems to be kind of a series of descriptions of battles. You know, victories over the outsiders, losses to the outsiders. As you walk further and further down the path becomes newer and newer. And you start to realize that the descriptions of the losses to the outsiders start to grow larger and larger, as in they are losing more and more. Until at this point, the way that it's laid out on these stones, there's one single path of stones describing the pathway to victory, but it is a never-ending battle. Whereas the rest is losses, the rest is corruptions, the rest is lost peoples, the rest is the people themselves becoming corrupted and falling to the outsiders' whims, until finally you come to two massive, large stones. You can see them from a distance. They are large, gray and white solid stones, about 15 feet tall. The trees overhead have been meshed. The flowering vines are growing over the top. And for Zacchus, there's a weird sort of memory coming to you, which at this point has become apparent to Alzera. It reminds you of the entrance to the Grove of the Moons, and how they had the tended trees, and how they had the ancient trees, and how everything was in balance. And this also reminds you of a grove. But unlike the Grove of the Moons, which has the duality to it, which has the respect for the moons overhead, this one refers only to nature. But the word is somewhat subtle in its translation. And as you get closer and closer, there is a transformation of that word. So it goes from nature to the one tree. As you pass underneath this arch, the snake pulls ahead of you. You may go directly to the heart. We will meet again. I have some things to talk about.
See you soon, Neil.
See ya for dinner.
And it kind of moves off to the side. There is a row of miniature evergreens leading to a central space.
Player mechanics. Is this a beast?
That creature?
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly looks like a beast, but they don't speak normally,
Yeah.
so it would be difficult to say. You have an instinct that it's probably something greater than just a beast.
Okay. So, me following this thing for 20 plus minutes, very intently.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a, if it's a beast, can I make a roll for it? If it's not, then it
To
does.
shapeshift.
Yeah.
Or to learn it.
To learn it.
I haven't learned a new form in a while.
Yes,
So.
actually, you could learn.
Yeah.
From it.
So, because we had said either a roll or spend extensive time
Oh, yeah.
studying it, following it for 20
I'd
minutes.
say you could take its form, yes.
Cool.
Yes. So add,
Giant snake.
I'm trying to remember which one that is, because there's a couple of them, but I want to make sure.
Maybe a giant constrictor.
A
A coatl, perhaps.
Anyway, we can figure that out
No,
during
it's
break.
got
I,
wings
I
and
just
feathers.
wanted to.
That's one you can
He
definitely
said
add
he
to your
had
list.
spines.
I didn't want to
It's a celestial.
ruin the moment, but before we go into a room,
The form that you'll be choosing will be giant constrictor steak.
Coming up in our time too, Mark.
Sure. Okay.
Right on time to finish the break for the break on a cliffhanger.
So are you continuing forward?
yeah.
Okay. It has gone off to one sort of passage on the inside. And you can see now from each side there are multiple very well tended fir trees, essentially, which mark off different pathways to different things. They are unmarked, except for what you can see is there are druidic signs kind of leading to living space, training space, meditation space, that sort of thing. You've not seen any people inside here, however. And as you move presumably further in, it kind of goes in straight and then turns to follow a curved path. It seems to be a spiral path inward towards the center. At the center, which takes about 10 minutes to walk through at a good pace. It opens to a large rock where two similar pillars to what you'd seen outside are there. The rock doesn't look like it's been carved as much as just sort of worn through convention and age. And there, sitting on that rock, is what appears to be an elven woman. Her skin is deep green. She's carrying a staff, which has what looks like a living tree growing on the top of it, almost like fingers, though, at the same time. So, you have finally come, granddaughter. I think that's where we'll take a break.
Wah, wah.
Family drama.
So we should hopefully take less than half an hour to return, because
Yeah.
less than an hour at that point to do it. But we shall return. And for those of you watching on YouTube, there was no break. It's all an illusion. And there we are.
Apparently,
Back
it's
from our
yawning
break.
when I say yes day.
We're all, tired and exhausted. Back for the more.
And cold now too. That's why I
Yeah,
have the hood
well,
on.
everybody noticed the AC. Would you rather be sweating? Because we were sweating. That's why we decided to move this little trick. So, back
Under this light, I
into.
look really sinister. I'm gonna keep this on, I think. No.
Well, we'll figure out lighting and stuff as we go along. Everything is life is an experiment.
Woo.
Try it all. All right.
Whoa.
As we resume, you folks have just been led into the heart of Festering, which is not perhaps as you expected it. Instead, what you find there seems to be a fully active natural area with wildlife and abundantly growing plants. Apparently also people, as you've seen them at a distance, ready and wary, but there. And a druid grove inside the center of a spiraling hedge was a rock throne on which sat a green woman, mature, but looking as strong and vibrant as she probably has for hundreds of years, holding a very familiar to Elzera staff, who addressed Elzera specifically as granddaughter. Not entirely in a warm way, more of an expectant way. But now she is looking to you to explain your presence.
What? It's your grandmother.
I'm ignoring Zacchaeus.
I am indeed her grandmother. Not as direct as it might seem. I have had many children over the ages. Only few have truly survived. I was glad that Amkisra was one of them.
Confusing.
Sorry, I did that wrong.
Liari.
I went to the wrong branch and then kind of kept walking down the branch and then fell off the branch. I'm like, hey, that was not as long as I meant it to be. Sorry. That Liari was one of them. And that your mother still survives.
I haven't seen you since I was like 10. I guess you've been here.
I have been many places. I have been where I've needed to go to make sure that the world is set proper, but I have much work to do. Many of my children were imprisoned here, and so I made sure that their prison would be their sanctuary.
I see.
Some I have managed to return to the world, and someday I will too.
Oh, is this one of them? I hold out the bird.
She looks dismayed.
That doesn't have a leg anymore.
The half-eaten bird.
Missing
Squeezed her blood.
parts.
I kind of cringe.
It is a child of this place, part of the natural order and balance, but so is death and feeding. I hope at least that it fed you well.
Yes.
Should in future you decide to hunt, however, I would ask you to ask permission.
Mm-hmm. I was not sure if it was real or not.
An understandable response. Much of this place seems to teeter on the edge of reality. Indeed, what I have been able to achieve here defies its very nature, of which I am most pleased.
While they continued to talk and do whatever they do, Kuzaima is just going to sort of settle into a corner or remote area or anything that's just kind of out of the way.
I mean, it's a circular space in the center of the spiral of trees, the hedges.
Mm-hmm.
So is it you want to move back up the spiral or behind the rock?
He's just going to be out of...
He's just going over
out of
there.
normal sight of people, out of the interaction area that people are dealing with, and just sit down.
Okay. Well, there's basically the stone throne and what would be effectively a dais in front of it, and you can kind of move off to the edge, if you will, beyond the two standing stones that are there in front as well.
And what he'll do is just quietly cast Tiny Servant
Okay.
to get the remains of the bird to go bury itself in a nice place.
Can that be done on a is it only an inanimate object?
I don't have the book with me,
Okay.
Which book is it?
Here, so.
but it's a tiny non-magical object that is not being carried or attached to something.
Which book?
Xanathar's probably.
Whoops. Let's see. It does say object though.
Okay.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be reanimation or anything like that. So.
Nope. I'm going to say having the corpse take itself out and dig a hole.
Yeah. No. I'm afraid in this case that won't be.
That
Okay.
might offend
Is there a
you.
nearby rock?
There are some stones embedded in the ground here. How big a rock are you looking for?
Something big enough to animate to take this corpse out and bury it.
I mean, is it strength relative to his size, or?
They can lift 60 pounds when they're animated.
I mean, you can find some smooth stones there.
Yeah, basically just a small, smooth stone that could carry it out like an animated
Okay.
grave
As you,
carrier.
begin to cast the
Or
spell.
casket carrier.
Paul.
You notice a rustling in the hedge itself around you, right beside you, and a small face peers out of the hedge. The face looks remarkably familiar, and you do a double take, seeing Radix over there and Radix's face coming out of there. What are you doing?
What do the people call it? Funeral.
Oh. May I watch? I've never seen one before.
Sure.
And kind of leaning half out of the tree, kind of, or the hedge, kind of leaning against it. This small little animated face, or not animated face, but animated person, if you will, leans out and watches.
Okay. And it takes like a minute to do that. And I'll just put the bird on the stone nicely and pour its blood back onto it. Has anything happened to the blood? Because this is really what I was
It's
looking for.
coagulated slightly.
Okay, so it's behaved like blood would.
Mhm.
Okay, then that's fine.
Season it a little bit with its own blood and
Mhm.
light the stone on
Pour it
fire.
out, that's like- and then I'll just tell it to go find an exit out into the woods and bury this bird in a nice place. And it can take that however it wants to.
Okay. One of the little limbs, kind of the three limbs underneath are kind of holding it up, and one of the little limbs kind of goes, whoosh, salutes, and then kind of starts to crab crawl across the ground.
You
And
create
you
a-
see the local radix kind of dip in and out of the hedge as it sort of follows this thing, which is going to just follow the easy path as far as it goes outwards. In the meantime,
Just for clarity's sake, who had the vision when we fell through the portal? It was you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, do I recognize the old lady?
you do. You
Okay.
do. Even though the angle is kind of a bit differently, you do recognize her as the one from the vision.
I'll
So-
let you know that. Just while I'm doing this, oh, she's the one from the vision.
I assumed from the staff. And she asked what we were doing here. Well, we were kind of forced down this portal when I was trying to clear out the Grove in Vitor. And while we were here,
The portal still remains, then. Interesting.
yeah, we were kind of forced down it.
Assuming it hasn't closed behind us.
There is no sight of the portal on this side. I looked for it for quite some time. But it is interesting that it has maintained strength there. Good. I knew I trusted them, for good reason.
The Dryads, they were going fairly crazy, I believe.
Oh,
The ones guarding the portal.
when you say they were going crazy, what do you mean?
I mean, when I asked what they were asking of us, they took that as a no, we weren't going to do it, and then forced us down the portal.
It seemed like they had been held there against their will for a very long time.
They are part of the gate. I made them part of the gate. It was the
Okay.
only way to maintain it properly. I am saddened to find that they had not been visited. You say the remains of an old grove. So it was not maintained.
No, I was in the process of cleaning it up and trying to get it back on its feet.
Most disturbing. I will have to send someone and send word if I can, when I can. And we will make sure that grove is attended to properly. What state was it in? Neglect? The tree was still strong, though, right?
I, the player, forget.
Same.
There was
It was
no
nothing
tree.
more than a stump.
Okay.
There was only a stump.
Also, the foliage tried to
it was-
kill us.
And
It was a stump underneath a basement of an old crumbling building.
Yeah.
The building was in poor shape.
And the trees around tried to kill us.
The Guardians are still active, that is good. But you say there was nothing left of the tree.
Only a stump. Someone had made a house.
A house! And she
Over
looks
it.
furious all of a sudden. A house was built on our grove.
Unfortunately.
I will make people pay for this. This was in, you say, Vatour covered the house?
Yes.
Or covered the grove? That fledgling city should have been crushed when I had the chance.
Hey, now, it has a wonderful library.
Oh, yes. Immerel told me of the library. I told him it was foolish, but he insisted. His knowledge has come in handy over the years.
So is the library. It's a wonderful place. You should come and visit at some point.
It is a pointless place.
No,
Gathering
no.
of dead knowledge. I would not deign to step into it.
I like my grandmother.
Knowledge. I guess it's like just trying his best to not say anything offensive back because I don't want to die.
Basically, I am going to explain to her what I had been doing in the 2 weeks that I had access to it.
Okay.
And that we do have a seed from a holy tree.
You do?
Yes.
But that is good.
I don't know how time works here, though, in comparison to there. So I don't know what's happened so far.
Time in many ways works here as intended by nature. It never ends. Goes on, and growth can continue. Not all growth here is as fruitful as what I have been able to do. But I am proud of it nonetheless. And soon, perhaps I will be able to spread my growth beyond this place. However, you followed your mother's teachings, didn't you?
I did. Because they were what I was raised with.
I told her to stop, but she insisted that the moons were worth venerating. Foolish. I should have destroyed them, too. Still, where are my manners? We've traveled for quite some distance to be here. We can talk of more important matters, perhaps, after some refreshments, if that is what you would like.
I would like that.
Sure.
I would like to also do an insight check.
Sure. What are you looking for?
Just any malice from that. Like, I hear the contempt to my mother, but is any of that directed at me in this current situation?
Okay.
13.
13. She's filled with a barely kept rage about a lot of things. The fact that the grove where the gate had been
Yeah.
was a desecrated tree, and a building was built on top of it absolutely put her into furious emotion right away. There is a Cold War feeling between her and your mother in the way that you talked about her. And there's a little extension of that to you, but there's also concern, and there's almost a teacher-like sense.
It's not your fault that you were taught this, but I don't like you were taught
Kinda
this.
like that, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool,
Are
cool.
you with the Scholars of the Water?
No. No, they were fools of a different kind. They chose to follow that.
Alexia?
Yes. At least there I was able to correct some mistakes. But come, shall we not feast? And she steps off the throne and kind of walks around and leads towards the back, which is nothing more than a full covered grove. And the trees themselves part as she walks through. Birds fly out of the area. A small butterfly alights on her finger as she walks through.
kind of like the vision of a nature goddess that would have been written about in the books that you'd seen before, where nature itself seems to respond to her as easy as most people breathe. The sense of the shifting of the spiral that surrounds her spot, it is as though you are carving out a tunnel and being led down this tunnel that cuts across all of those layers deeper into the grove. And there is what looks like a feast being set.
Cool.
On long tables made of fallen trees. Nothing seems to have been carved or cut so much as they are adjusted, and stones are made to keep them solid and in place. It is a feast of natural foods. There are berries. You can smell those instantly, and you recognize the raspberries that were along the place. Fruit are brought out, vegetables. There is even a roast beast. Probably it's a deer that has been placed there, but the head is still on the deer, and it's almost given a place of reverence at the table. Seated around the table are about a dozen elves, similar green skin to hers. Most of them carrying weapons of some kind, but not armed for war, more like they wore them every day, wearing simple green clothing and tunics. Men and women, there's even a few children running around chasing after the butterflies, and a bird that kind of swings by and kind of pats on the kids' heads as they get close to the butterfly, almost defending it. And your grandmother gestures, and there's a cry that rises up from the table of welcome. There's a sharp pain on your finger, the finger holding the ring. And across this opening space, you see an orb, oblong, egg-like shaped actually, smooth with a greenish white color, glowing slightly. That's where the ring is leading you to. Just across the space, piled up on some stones, wrapped with some vines around it, but just sort of there, and no one's paying attention to it. And she welcomes you all to sit down. Even welcoming you, Clark, but you can see that she's wary of you and that weapon. But still kind of welcoming at the moment. Come, feast with us.
Clark will sit.
I'll sit too.
I will sit, but I'm staring at the orb.
Okay.
I'll sit.
Okay. The two of you make insight checks. So Clark and Kazaima.
So 14.
16.
Okay. As you move over to the table, some space is cleared off for you to sit down. But the both of you notice that the space was not cleared as there were people sitting there. They took a look at you and got up and left, as though we're not eating beside them.
I'm used to that.
Clark smiles a little bit.
And there's a pretty wide berth on either side. The others on the other side are eyeing you warily, but with smiles on their faces. They're kind of not sure what's going on here, but seeing who you know as Zora walking with them, they seem contented with that. You sit down, you're staring at that. No one seems to pay any attention to you. Zora announces, "These are my guests. See that they are properly treated." There's quizzical looks that passes between some of them, but they all nod. They hand around the bowls of different fruits. There's mangoes there that are fresh. There's avocados. There's all kinds of what you would only associate as fresh fruit, which for some places, like Aquain, fresh fruit comes in on the boats. And it's not exactly fresh by the time it gets off the boats. Vittoria, you get a fresh feast during the summertime, but not during the winter at all. But everything here no matter what season it normally grows in, is fresh and ready to eat.
Do we get a short rest by feasting?
If you're just going to sit here, yeah.
Clark will, until told otherwise.
They chatter around the table. First of all, who understands Elven? Then you don't pick up what
No.
it is, and I don't think Kuzaima does either. But the two of you notice the chatter is relatively mundane. It is about harvests. It's about there is a talk at one point of creatures on the border, but they have been repelled. There is mention that a bird was killed. And Zora kind of gives them a look and kind of nods toward Kuzaima, and then they stop talking about the bird that was killed.
Yours tasty.
Yeah, so there's general chatter you're welcome to have, and you want to take a short rest, you're welcome to do so. There doesn't seem to be anything pressing at the moment.
Well, we eat, yeah.
Although in the back of your mind, you're never out of vision of that thing. Whatever it is. It seems to be almost like the center of the back, but again, no one's paying attention to it. No one walks near it whatsoever.
Do I notice it, or probably? Because
You notice it there, but the significance of it is kind of lost to you. It's strange. It's odd. The one thing that you do notice, actually you would notice in particular, it's about the same size and shape as the clone pod,
Okay, that's interesting.
but not the same kind of structure on the outside. Just the same size and shape.
Once I'm done eating and taking my time eating and like
The food tastes rich and delicious and fresh.
I will ask my grandmother, what's that over there?
I'll listen to the answer because, yeah.
She smiles, not a happy smile, but more of an expectant one, like she's been waiting for this question. That, dear granddaughter, is a lesson. It is a lesson in how important things must be kept careful, in how some people must be kept apart, in how there is an important work to be done, and no matter how petty the struggles of lesser individuals are, must rise above them and do what is right. It is a protection and a heart. It contains something very, very precious. And at that point, even though there's nothing like a sun that you would normally think of, just ambient light that seems to stream in from above or from around, a shadow passes overhead. And there's a lot of noise as everybody gets ready and runs around. Zora starts barking orders to the protections, to the lances. You know what to do. Be sure that they get nowhere near us. And
Does this
whatever you
happen
do,
often?
protect the heart. That the shadow overhead has a shape. A long, skinny center and broad, black wings. It seems as though you've arrived at a very bad time. In this place, there have been enemies, those who would seek to devour the heart and take its power. I will not let that happen. No one shall shatter the heart until I say it is time to plant that seed.
Do dragon attacks happen often?
Too often.
Okay.
If you would help,
Yes.
then come with me.
Clark will stand.
Okay?
He'll bring a mango with him.
Never pass up an extra bit of food. The soldier knows well it may be the last food you get for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Come with me. And she walks by the orb or egg or whatever, heart, whatever you want to call it, and again to the grove or to the wall of trees beyond, who separate, and there.
I cast detect magic. Do I see anything from the egg?
Yes.
Okay.
It is positively glowing with magic. The magic would be an inclusion of abjuration, enchantment, illusion, and transmutation.
Interesting.
And there's a hint of divination, but the divination is kind of like the scent of magic beyond the surface.
So do we walk close to the heart?
Yep, fairly close.
Is it clone pod? Or is it just the same size?
As you move closer, make an Arcana roll.
Oh, crap. Wait. With a short rest, are we still exhausted?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta be a long rest.
Well, I got an 18 and a 16. So that's 30.
Okay. What you look at, and when you look at it, is a couple of things. One, you can see that sheen of the green glow is on the surface, but you actually detect something slightly just below the surface, and you can make out the bands of metal, probably star metal, that are on the inside, much like the way the clone pod was described, or was designed. It is not a clone pod. It's very distinctly not, because there's literally no way out of this. It looks like it's meant to contain something as much as grow something. Thinking back on the shattered remains of the construction that you found in the basement, they would fit something about this size. So, the conclusion you come to, this was what Immerel made.
Oh.
He used the clone pod design, changed it, and made this as something else entirely. And even as you just pass closer to it and kind of take a closer look, you feel the waves of magical radiation coming off of it.
Okay.
And that little bit of, again, for you, because especially how closely you were with the other Starstone, the first one, you feel that hit of magical power.
Okay. So it's a piece of star in there.
It's made of star.
Okay.
It's metal. Yep.
Question.
Mhm.
As we pass, Clark's going to focus on the shadow glaive. Does it react to its surroundings?
Yes.
Okay.
The Shadow Glaive wants you to destroy everything here.
Sweet.
No.
Absolutely everything.
All right.
It seems incensed and practically vibrating in your hands.
Okay.
What about my necklace?
Which necklace?
The orb. The orb with the faces.
That thing.
The key.
That thing.
Yeah. Here, how would I put this? The face with the corrupted druidic is glowing somewhat.
Physically glowing, or just glowing because I've got detect magic?
Because you've got detect magics. It's reacting to this place as a familiar connection. Finally, as you move by it, Elzera, and just as you get up to it, you can hear distant, yet distinct, loud, and pretty terrifying, the sound of the dragons roaring from where up ahead they're going. You also hear, in a very familiar voice, "I'm glad you're here." And you can hear it now somehow. It's quiet, but it's there, in that heart. "I've missed you."
Me too. I whisper that, and I apologize, and I keep walking, because right now I gotta deal with the problem right now.
Up ahead where she leads you to, you can see there were effectively living quarters that they had molded out of the trees. So grown trees wrapped them around, but the trees themselves are still living in these sort of huts that they're there. Nothing has been cut. All of it is still alive, and little blooms are found all over these huts. At least 24 of them in that one area, and you can see that there's another one distant from here. Sort of a living space. At least they were living. Now you can see that the tops of 3 or 4 of them have been melted down, and the people that are running around, some of them get caught up in a swell as one of the smaller dragons comes down and breathes outward an acrid, terrible smelling gas that just engulfs them, and their screams turn to nothing almost in an instant as their bodies melt and fuse and twist, leaving nothing but a blackened, gooey substance where that dragon flies through. It continues to fly through and fly back up, arrows launching after it, bouncing off its scaly skin. Walking forward just a few steps ahead of you, you see your grandmother. Her form, actually, no, she would reach into a bag at her hip and put on a pair of gauntlets. The gauntlets are unusual. They look more like claws. And then you realize they are claws, as the black overlapping scales are formed over her arms. And she puts on a pair of dragon claw gauntlets. She's faced these things before. From out of there as well, out of this bag, she draws a mighty sword. It is a scimitar shape. It looks, to your trained mind, like a masterwork sword. The gilding of gold and silver that is wound around it looks almost like it's been grown, like an organic substance, and seems to hold in. And you can even see where the gold runs along the blade, forming little teeth every so often. And as she draws it forth, those teeth kind of flex a little bit and pull back. Granddaughter, fight well and we shall speak again. And there's a verve that looks in her eyes, and she launches up into the sky, sword forward at the largest shadow on the horizon.
How many shadows are there?
You see the one big one, which you've seen before, the elder dragon. You've seen 2 or 3 floating around. One very distinct dragon, a little bit older than the one you had fought before, was the one that swung through and seems to be causing havoc. And you can see the crunch, actually, of a large tree falling as one of the trees on the edge is struck as the dragon flaps its wings and kind of kicks at the tree, and there is a screaming sound as the tree is falling, almost as though it was a living being, as it crashes right straight through the scene and onto several of the huts. Pandemonium breaks out around the area. What do you want to do? We won't go into a formal combat today because we don't have time, but a few seconds to establish yourself. This is effectively an open clearing, not mown, but small, naturally short grass all around, green except for the patches of black splatter which are across.
We've fought black dragons before. They do acid, right?
Yes, and from what you've seen of
We're
the
watching
breath
it happen now.
just now, yeah, it's very definitely acid.
And very definitely acid. Okay.
Do I see any place where maybe there's some javelins or darts or daggers or short bow or anything like that around?
Definitely. Not only that the elves around you, and again, you've only seen elves, are carrying them, but there are weapons racks at the ready, as if preparing for a fight.
Good.
They have numerous javelins on them, as well as there are literally quivers of arrows that have been made.
Are there any short bows, or are they all long bows?
Their bows are all long bows.
What are you looking for?
Something to use as a ranged weapon. I can't fire a longbow.
Fair.
That's what it's
I
told of the
probably can't. I mean, technically my stats I can, but I shouldn't be able to throw a regular javelin. Nobody seems to use darts.
I have on me.
Radix is throwing some of her darts, but she makes those.
I have on me 10 darts.
Sure.
Because I'm proficient and have them from beginning of game.
Sure.
And I do have a javelin. All this is strapped to my back because I don't have my bag of holding. Actually, no, the javelin would be in the quiver.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can get that for you if you show interest in that.
The javelin, I mean, the javelin's bigger than I am, so I probably shouldn't be able to actually throw it. But
It
the
would be hard
darts
to
would be
throw
fine.
upward, but you could throw it laterally. But
Yeah. The darts, I also, my longbow is special. It is made for short people. and with the ability to extend. I believe because it's the dwarven one that can fold.
Yep,
right?
the dwarven one folds up.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical longbow, not a pure longbow. So
Yeah.
it's basically like a recurve bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue there is I'm only half as tall as a dwarf. So, no, darts should be fine.
Okay.
I still have a few blowgun darts left, too.
I also how many?
53 knives. And
You have the dagger of poison somewhere.
No, I gave all my daggers to Clark, actually.
Clark gave them all away to someone else.
Yeah.
Well, Clark gave the poisoned one back.
Oh.
Because it was actually in with the other stuff. I still have the page for it here because it was in with the group equipment.
Oh, okay.
It was the one thing that I kept saying, you guys have any resources? And then nobody ever mentioned the dagger.
Because you were the person who had the master list of party loot.
Yeah, but my character doesn't know it's there.
That's when Pat says, yo, it's in the party loot. But yes, you can take that.
Yay.
I don't have that written in my stuff
Yeah.
that I have.
I've got the stats if you need it.
No, I have literally the sheet that Mark handed out for you.
Perfect.
But yeah, no, so I would give you that. I would have given you that a while ago
Sure.
because
Okay.
Elzara would know that it's in there. I, the player, didn't know it was in there. Yeah, that's what I can give you to help.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Cool.
That'll last a few rounds.
I'm going to continue looking at my spells because that's what I was doing.
Mage armor, first of all.
So what is Clark doing?
Clark will find a nice open spot where he's clear of anybody nearby.
Are there
There's a lot of commotion, but you can find a place that's relatively clear. Probably one of the places that's already been strafed by acid, so it's burned to ground at this
He'll
point.
extend the hooky bit
Okay.
of the glaive,
The blade.
yeah, and then he'll carve a circle around him, then a big swoop,
Okay.
and then look up and wait.
how many? How far up are the dragons?
At this point, the one's just ascended quickly to about 60 feet.
Oh, and probably do that big like predator yell.
Okay. Make a challenge. Make an intimidation roll.
Yeah.
I'll give you advantage because it's kind of cool.
All right.
In that case, you're at regular.
Regular.
That's great.
True.
Didn't roll really well. Rolled a 4, but with intimidation that'll be 10.
Okay. There's definitely a bunch of the elves on the ground who look over at you, kind of trying to figure out if you're predator or prey at this point.
That's fine.
Who level their bows at you, but then notice that you're staring at the dragon itself, and then think, well, if at the moment he's not fighting us, then we're not going to fight him.
Cool.
I'm trying to think of a word. Like, what's the word for like big javelin catapults, like ballista or something? Are there any of those?
Not here,
Okay.
but you did hear her talk about manning a couple of different stations.
Yeah.
And since they probably have taken on dragons before, they probably have something like that here.
Yeah, I'll try to look for
You
one
actually
of
see
those.
others of the elves running and starting to climb the trees, and they seem to be moving very quickly up the trees. And you kind of notice that there are spikes in the side of the tree, or probably growths out of the tree, so they have handholds to make it quickly up the trees.
I am going to hide in a bush or something.
Okay.
Whatever rough terrain is, it's not too far, terribly far from Clark.
There are lots of bushes and even flowering and berry bushes right in this area as well. Imagine
Ooh,
the-
I'll hide in a berry bush. It's convenient.
The best kind of garden area is what I'm trying to describe here, where they literally grow all their food all around them all the time. So if you feel like a snack after you wake up from bread, you literally walk across the open carpet of grass and grab some berries. Yeah, you can make a stealth roll if you want to hide there.
I am going to, once we get to combat next session, I'll specify what arrow, but I haven't, I'm not sure what arrows I have left.
Okay.
I don't have the right piece of paper for that.
Knock a magic arrow
Knock a magic arrow of some kind.
of some
It,
description.
it may be
stay
plus
out of-
1. I just want to see what I have.
Okay.
But
Disadvantage, I get a 33.
The rogues and their weird ability to have crazy numbers. It's kind of fun when you get a chance to use them.
I'm just gonna, mage armor and stay out of sight for now.
Okay. As
Are you
kinda
going to
look-
actually hide or just not stand in the middle?
Well, both, preferably both.
Because if you hide,
You-
make a
you can
roll.
make a
if I
stealth
can't
roll.
see you.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh no, I get a 4. So I
You rolled
trip
the
and I
dead
go
opposite.
behind a building or something.
Yeah, you're kind of like, I'm hidden, and then you realize I'm hidden behind a half melted.
I'm hidden, and it's
kind of.
shit.
And shield is up.
Okay, jump.
Jump.
The shield goes up. As you're already there, you can see that dragon, that older dragon who came swooping down and swooped back up, swooped back towards roughly where the rock, the throne was, and then swooped around and is starting to make another run, and then it lets out a very loud, screeching call, like a signal has been given, as it lets forth once more on its acid breath, and the direction it's going would take it right over the eating area, to the back, where the orb is.
What? That's where its breath is going.
That's where it's going. Yes.
That's where I start running to.
Yeah, same.
And the call is answered in loud, booming, defiant, victorious, angry, delighted way by the largest of the large shadows flying overhead. And it swoops in that direction. And we'll pick up next week, well, in 2 weeks, with this particular battle.
We've had dungeons, folks. These are dragons. Tune in next time.
I think
There's no time
dungeon's
I had some
better.
more dragons, I think. And we'll see how you guys do against.
Against a
now,
swarm of
I'm trying to
black
remember her
dragons.
name. Do you remember her name offhand? The dragon queen.
I think that's all we've had her referred to as.
There was a name. I don't know what it was.
Is
Givanetta.
Idris? No. Idris was the god.
Givanetta is the brood mother,
Yes.
There you go.
and has been searching for things all over this realm for quite some time. You get the impression they found one of the things they were looking for after, well, having been hidden for quite some time. Maybe something's changed.
She'll have to pry that thing from my cold dead hands. Maybe she will.
Maybe she will. Anyway, I want to thank you all for playing.
Then I can put my cold hands on it and just teleport with it. Bye.
We're trying something different. We didn't get all of our pieces and parts going together today. Hopefully the audio will be improved in the next one. If you're seeing this in the video replay later, hopefully it is improved by now and was improved. If not, maybe send me a message saying, Mark, you didn't improve this stuff. So if people are interested in knowing more about this and maybe interacting with folks, where should they go for social media?
There is a Facebook page called Legend of the Drowned Isles. It is linked down below in the YouTube video. I don't know if you have a link on the Twitch, but
Not so much on the Twitch, I think. I should probably do that.
I don't know how Twitch works, to be fair. I do the Facebooks. And there is a group, Watchers of the Drowned Isles, where we actually talk sometimes.
It's true.
The page is more, are we running? Are we not? What is that?
Well, I think that's the private page, the private group. There's a private group, a public page, and a public group. Seems
Yeah.
like a lot.
But I still announce whenever we
That's fair.
run.
That's fair.
So,
And Clark, a.k.a. Jody.
Whoa. Yeah. People may watch us on YouTube, and if you do, please like and subscribe to the video, share it around to your friends, hit the bell for notifications, and all the things you've heard at every single YouTube video. But we hope you enjoy it.
I mean, we don't say this either, but, like, also do whatever the equivalent of that is on Twitch, too.
Yep. You can at least
I think you
tag
can-
as it a favorite. You
Yeah.
can subscribe. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yay.
And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Next week, nothing because we're not playing next week. It's
Maritime.
and Maritimes, Canada, a whole bunch of stuff. The week after that, next time we play,
Dragons.
some dragons in there.
Whoa.
If you need any dragons, let me know.
All right, folks. Thanks, guys, for playing.
See you later.